Guys, welcome back to the Harambe's Heroes podcast. It's been a fucking minute, hasn't it, guys? We haven't done this in like 2 or 3 weeks. We got all kinds of shit to talk about. We win stuff, or we have won stuff. We're gonna win more stuff. But before we get too far into how we win everything, we have a special guest on the podcast today, Mr. Grimmager. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Okay.
He won the Austin thing, dude. He's really good at Sigmar.
I'm a long-term adopted monkey. Yeah, and I won the Austin U.S. Open with 5-0 with Iron Jaws, and obviously I'm a shitty player because of it. No, that's why.
Yeah, dude, all army.
No,
I guess he's okay at Age of Sigmar. It's okay. But and then y'all two play too. How'd y'all do?
Right. Like I spent all Friday night telling people the hands they was about to catch with undergut, and then I spent Saturday and Sunday showing them I was right. No, it was a good time. We had some great games. I had some great games. Underguts was a blast to play. So much fun. In fact, I'm not hobbying anything right now. I don't want to put the army right on the shelf and go on to something else.
Yeah, you found the models that look like you, dude. So you gotta keep playing them.
Dimitri had a box, and when I came over and grabbed my tray because he was at the table where I had just played, he was like, "That definitely looks like your army." Like, you know it.
That's awesome. Well, we've all kind of been alluding to the actual Games Workshop. It's an open from their open series, I think is what it's called.
Yep.
But that's kind of what we're referring to. Last weekend we all went to that. It was like a 120-man tournament or something around that. A lot of people went, and a lot of us wound up going. And our club actually did super well. 4 out of the top 6. That's okay, right? Like I hear that's pretty good. 4 out of the top 6 spots.
only just okay. Only just enough to be okay.
Could be better, but it'll have to do. So I guess we'll kind of finish going through those games. I took Seraphon. I did okay. I didn't win. I only got second place. Terrible. But my first game was against Cameron Pinkard from Dallas. He played Iron Jaws. We had a pretty good game. I hadn't played him yet, so it was really fun to play him. Veins of Gur was the mission, I think, right? Which is basically modified Starfall. And I'm not a huge fan of the mission because how random it can be, but we didn't really get too far into the mission because he was super aggressive with Iron Jaws. And we kind of talked afterwards about the game, about how hard Seraphon can punish a really aggressive playstyle, but he wound up driving into Curse and lost his Maw Crush really early, so that kind of dictated the flow of the game. And I was able to get a win there. How did your guys' games go for round 1?
Who did you play, Justin? Round 1.
Let someone else go first real quick. I'm trying to find it.
Oh, all right. Well, I know mine. I played, I think, Maximilian Garcia, I think is his name. He's the manager at the Games Workshop store here in Kingwood, Texas. Apparently he's been in the hobby for like 20 plus years. His dad is a big time golden demon painter. And he was playing some new Stormcasts with the Long Strikes and Annihilators, and had a great, he was like a 1-drop or a 2-drop maybe. So if you guys don't know, my underguts list is 14 drops. The funniest part of the game is when I walk up and ask you how many drops you have, like I'm going to challenge to see you. And he's like, yeah, I'm 2. I'm like, okay, well, I'm 14, so I'm going to put 2 of these so I can deploy your army, so I can see where it's going. And obviously he took a turn because he had to double shoot on the 6-man unit of Long Strikes, and he translocated them into a real bad spot. He translocated them into range of 4 Iron Blasters. So and he killed a 4-man unit of lead ducters on turn 1. So I was like, okay, cool. His first round of shooting, his single shooting was pretty good, and then I think he kind of whiffed a little bit. And he didn't drop the annihilators in on turn 1, which was surprising because I thought, he was going to apply the pressure with the annihilator, so I had to deal with those and possibly get himself another round of shooting with those long strikes. But he didn't, so it allowed me to just remove the long strikes from the board. As far as the mission went, it didn't really matter. It didn't affect anything. I think he won the roll off, or I won the roll off. Can't really remember, but he won, and the annihilators came in, and I unleashed hell with an iron blast just to see what would happen, and killed 2 annihilators on the wing. Iron blast, pretty rough. And then we went on. I think after that turn, I pretty much had him tabled, and we kind of just talked it out from there. So.
Cool. I can go second. So my first game was again for the third Open Series GT. My first game was against an Archaon list, and so I was kind of used to this mission fighting Archaon. I was playing Trolls, so I was having a little bit of difficulty trying to imagine how I was going to beat Archaon, and my opponent. Apologies, I can't remember his name. He ended up playing a little bit more passively than I would have imagined an Archaon player does. Usually they kind of just bum rush him in and tie me down and prevent me from really being able to score objectives. But he played super defensively, and because of that, I was able to get the double turn and take out his entire... I mean, literally, by the bottom of turn 2, he had nothing left except for Archaon. And all the objectives dropped on either in the middle or on the opposite side where Archaon was. And so from that point on, it basically sealed the deal as far as points go. So just it was a really close game overall, but it definitely played well into my favor.
Yeah, the community has been just nuts about how you did that with Trolls, but we've been watching you be successful with Trolls for a long time. Yeah, well, you and me and Doc, you had a really good game when I was playing Doc, where if I wouldn't have gotten lucky and Marathi wouldn't have chopped, the Shadow Queen wouldn't have chopped the whole army up, then you probably beat me in that game.
Cool. How about you, Justin?
My game 1 was actually against a Houston local, Kyle Valdez. So just like Mr. Miller, I also drew an Archaon list. Kyle's a good player. He definitely knows how to run that army specifically. I think it's what he's run for quite a while now. I had less drops, so I let him go first because I'm destruction, and if you're destruction and you don't try for the double turn, you're playing to lose. He came in with Archaon, and I think the trick for the game was, 1, I never let Archaon stay in combat in my turn. I always retreated from it, always ran away. Because there's nothing in my list for Iron Jaws that can really go one-on-one with Archaon with like a +3 to its armor rerolling. And other than that, it was a pretty close game. Objective came down in the middle, and then round 3, they both came in on the left side. So my army it was all on the right, and as Iron Jaws does, my entire army then went to the left, because we just do that. And I
moving your army twice is pretty good.
Yeah, just teleport anything. Yeah. The big turn was when he came in with his Vanguard with I think it's By My Will, and charged the Maw Crusher, double fought him, and didn't manage to kill it. It was left alive with 6 wounds, I think. And when I fought back, I didn't target the Vanguard because of By My Will. I killed something else, and I waited for my turn. And I believe I finest hour. I got a whole bunch of buffs up on him, and then dedicated to killing that unit, and was able to wipe them all out without him being able to kill them, kill the Maw Crusher back in return. So that pretty much
CP to put it back on him.
Yeah, I used 1 CP to make him fight it full.
No, I'm saying he didn't have the CP to put By My Will back on them.
No, they still had it, and they fought. They just didn't kill it back.
He just waited for his buffs.
Waited for the buffs to go up. Yeah.
So, and that pretty much
Charles is a really good guy too. He's a local tournament organizer, like bastion of the community. So As cool as you
it
have
was
to play
a
it,
great game.
he's integral to the Houston community for sure. Well, that's cool. That was round 1. Round 2 was what busted ass mission they play for round 2? What was that shit?
It was character, the 3 in the
The
line.
leader one, Apex
The
Predator.
Sons of Bahamut insta-win.
If you put this in your pack,
Shame on
whatever. We had to play it. And luckily, I didn't have to play a Giants player that could just come up and like take the objective back, even though they don't have any of the keywords. They're just like, it's mine now. That's cool. But so instead of playing Giants, I actually got to play a local as well, James West. If you don't know who James West is, it's probably just because you haven't played him, because he's one of the best players in the world. My estimation, you're not going to find someone who's tighter with the rule set. Like he is a super excellent player, and whatever he plays at a high level. And he was playing Lumineth, so it was a little scary because of Lumineth's ability to remove heroes from range. And I had a lot of, support heroes that were lower wound count, so I knew that it was going to be a really close game. He was lower drops than me because I'm at 10 drops, just like Brian, where I was like, yeah, you get to go. And so he took first turn, he kills both my Star Priests, and but because of the way he set up, he was in Shiny Company, he couldn't really control any of the objectives besides, I think he took one on the edge of the table, and the Cathalers didn't have enough movement to get on the objectives because I stopped Speed of Hish with the Slan table-wide unbind. So he only got one and more, and got his battle tactic. So it left some opportunity to kind of rack up scoring points as the game went on, because I was able to remove his Cathalers on my turn with Comet's Call and some of the other mortal wound application that Seraphon has, and then I got on 2 of the objectives with my bigger heroes that he had a hard time getting off of the objectives. And that's kind of how it went from there. Is it was a little back and forth of my heroes were too tough for him to kill, and so he couldn't move me off of the objectives, and he was killing a lot of my other peripheral models, but he couldn't kill the models that were controlling the objectives. And then Comet's Call eventually took care of his last hero, so he was out of heroes by turn 3, I believe. And I just kept scoring because I had heroes left that he couldn't remove, kind of tied up and mucked up the middle of the board. So he stopped being able to choose which heroes died and took damage. And so I was able to edge him out by, I think, 8 or 9 points or so. And that's kind of how my game 2 went. Excellent game. I was happy to play James again. It's always a privilege to play James because of how good of a player he is. So that's me.
Had to hug it out.
Yeah, I mean, every time you play James, you know that you're getting pushed to the limit. So it's not an easy game.
He's gonna make you better every time you play him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just the way it's gonna go. Like, he's going to show you something that you didn't necessarily anticipate or know was in the game because of how all of the moving pieces in Age of Sigmar, you just can't know all of the interactions. And so you always find something new against James because he plays the rules super tight. So who wants to go on their game 2?
We'll go in the same order, I guess. I'll go. My game 2 was against Cruel Boys, and I had not been able to play them yet, and I got some things going on in life that haven't even let me do my normal skim through the book and see what all the rules were. So, I mean, I had seen people play them because running a couple of tournaments, seeing people play Cruel Boys, I knew what they had access to with the mortals, but it was a whole lot more mortals than I thought. But that being said, I brought 165 wounds to a 100 wound tournament, so it wasn't that big of a deal. And the big surprise for me was I turtled up like I have to with that army. I turtled up and I turtled up so far away from the objectives because I can get to them really quick with ogres if I need to. And I turtled up so that if he was going to come into my lines and try to kill some of my shooting, that he would have to come off the objectives to do it. And he completely ignored the objectives. I put Hrothgar. He gave me the turn. I put Hrothgorn on the far left objective and sat him there. And didn't really move. I said, whatever. I'm gonna get hold one, hold more. You know, I don't. He gave me the turn. So, and then he moved up in range on his turn, and he sent 20 gut rippers after Hrothgorn, and Hrothgorn just made them chase him onto the next table. It was just like I didn't have to deal with. That was 40 wounds worth of models I didn't have to deal with, you know, and then I just systematically removed all of his big, what are they called, slug offs or grudge rakers? Is that what they
Sludge
are, or
rakers.
something?
Sludge
Sludge
rakers,
rakers. Yeah, and he didn't think that I was going to do it. He's like, yeah, he's got a 4+ save and a 5+ field no pain. I'm like, I don't care. Like,
Just
I'm
a
shooting a
carnosaur.
million times.
Yeah.
Like 4+ save monsters, those come off the board on a regular. We're not worried about that. So I took a turn, killed one. Then he charged in with the amulet one. I think I did like 6 wounds to it on the way in, and he ended up killing one unit of lead belchers, and then it died on my turn. And basically, I just killed all of his heroes in like a turn and a half, and walked up on the objectives and then scored everything for the next 3 turns. His cross, I mean, the cool little tech in there, the Tyrant, is really good against those long range crossbows they have. Because if he's near a unit of lead belchers, he's -1 to hit. He's got a natural innate -1 to wound with the massive scars from underguts. So even though those naturally hit on 2s and 3s, 3s and 4s is a whole different ball game. And I think he hit me with them once. So the way the underguts played all weekend was I was never pressured to go score points because I knew I was going to kill your 100 wounds worth of army before it mattered, before turn 3 most of the time. So it was like I could kill you and then go up and score everything for the back 3 turns. Just score enough to keep me in the game early and then just take over after that.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those missions where you can, if you can remove your opponent's scoring pieces, you can make a lot of ground up because you can get a lot of points from the board, and as battle tactics become harder and harder to score, you get into the game, you can make that ground up on the back end as long as your army hasn't died. So, an interesting mission in that regard. Terrible with the giant interaction, though, as giants do for most missions.
Yeah, I would have. I mean, granted, as much as that sounds goofy, I would have liked to have that challenge to see what I could have done against giants on that mission. Because I think reasonably I could get them off the board by turn 3 if I don't whiff on shooting in the middle 2 rounds like I had the one game where I played against giants.
Yeah.
But it is a dice game, but it was fun. I mean, the guy was a good player. He knew his rules well. He knew my rules well. He was like, "Hey, my dad's playing Underguts here." I was like, "How do you normally do against him?" He's like, "Oh, I beat him every time." I was like, "Okay, I like that." This is
I think so. For mine, it was pretty much over in 20 minutes. I pulled Sons on game 2, and so this particular army I had fought before. So Jeff was he was a judge this time, but up in LSO he brought that army. I guess it's like the Weird Knobs Traveling Army is what they call it.
It's the one with all the undersea creatures and shit.
Yeah, it's the Suns, but they have it's fantastic. I mean, one of my the coolest armies I've ever seen, and obviously the judges agreed because he scored like insanely highly on his points and stuff. But yeah, it's like a bunch of like Cthulhu looking giants and stuff. That it definitely one of the cooler armies. But anyways, I fought Jeff. Trolls versus Suns on this battle plan at LSO. And this was the exact same rematch. The only thing that changed was that the player I was fighting was Brian instead. And the game went about the same where I lost by turn 2. In this one, though, I tried to be a lot more defensive because I knew he was just going to take all the objectives. I mean, I have like a combined model count of 45, and he's running Taker Tribe, so everything he had was at least 30 models. So he ended up
Well, it's leaders, right? That's what scores. So
right, but
like you can put your leader on the thing, and then they can come up and use their giant rolls
right.
to just take the advantage.
And that's what
without
they
even killing.
did. Yeah, it was just. And so I tried to just take him to grab some points, but I like barely touched him. And I really tried to turtle up so that if he got into anything, he would be punished for it. What I didn't expect is he did 4 charges, and all of them were 10 plus. So everything made it into combat. Everything rolled mortals on me, and then he his man crushers with the -1 to hit and all that nonsense. Still killed my troll hag, and then he killed my general, and then he won the roll off. So and also the moon didn't move just to piss me off. So it was probably one of the worst games I've played in a while. I've never had someone offer to buy me a beer before, but that was one of those games. So I was like, you know what, I appreciate it, but I'm gonna go cry in the corner and wait for game 3.
Yeah, let's try to rebound from this shit mission.
Yeah, I was like, honestly, I know a lot of people were saying that they would have preferred, or that they switched the battle plans because of fighting giants. But honestly, I would have rather done that because at least I would have had a chance to. I would have had a couple turns to try.
Marking territory is less egregious than Apex Predators.
I agree. I didn't. That was out of all the, like, if there was one major complaint, that was definitely the one where I was like, this was just the dumbest choice I've ever seen. As far as like, if you notice a problem with a specific battle plan, like, why did you pick that one? That was infinitely, even still, at minimum, it was just as bad. Right? It didn't solve anything.
I think the problem is that there's just not good choices in the GHB itself right now. Like, I think that's one of the reasons the Giants are so strong is because they abuse a lot of the mission mechanics in the GHB.
Yeah.
And there's just not a lot of good choices to do.
Yeah.
Like, there's 9 or 10 that are just 3 objectives in the center, and it turns out that big models that move fairly quickly and count for a lot of models play those missions well. So I think that the next General's Handbook that comes out and introduces more missions needs to have better mission diversity, so it doesn't cater too hard to certain army play styles or certain certain factions, because what it does is it misses a lot of the nuances in the game, I think, in my opinion.
Right. But yeah,
it makes you have to build to take on, like, your army has to be built to take on giants in any tournament you go to. So it kind of forces list building into that, like, so.
Yeah.
For real, you're lacking diversity.
In chat, Caleb and Andrew were talking about the moon. I had some pretty bad moon luck. It's kind of, I think if, like, there's one thing about Gloomspite gets that, like, because a lot of people have been asking about the trolls and stuff. If the major problem for me is just that your allegiance abilities maybe happen during a game, and if they do, it's usually 1 turn if you get it. So that's the only time that that was, like, always the big issue whenever people ask me, what I didn't like about my list. So, all right, that's it.
Man of the hour, you're up, dude.
I actually like the second mission quite a bit, actually.
Really? Tell me why.
Also, I wanted giants on this mission. I know, it's so weird, but that's just what it is. But I got Roger Barker, who is a really nice guy. He's great to play against. Apparently, he's on the Worlds team, or at least that's what Sir Gavin over there told me.
There's a Minuteman portion of the team. I think he's on that right now. So very good player. I was able to meet him for the first time in person too at this event. It's a super nice guy. So, but
yeah, no, he was a good dude. He played a really tight game, but there were some critical roles in the game that just went my way. Round 1, he had an interesting big wall list: Maw Crusher 12, Crewboy bows with the support shamans, War Chancer with a arcane tome and the teleport, 20 goblins with nets, and then 2 units of pigs at 3-man units, and then a couple 5-man units of Ardboys, just your basic battle line. He deployed a good kite. There really nothing wrong with it. I let him go first, of course, because I was less drops, and there's almost never a reason with Iron Jaws to go first unless your opponent's just really stupid and doesn't screen at all, and you can just crush their army that
Broken
round.
ranks.
Like the threat of the double turn with Iron Jaw is one of its stronger strengths for sure.
I agree.
Yeah.
as you said, like unless you can just cripple somebody in their deployment zone, you're probably just giving them the first turn and seeing if they know the proper moves.
Yeah, because I think all of my games swung, because I always got that double turn, which was really fortunate for me in every game. But all my games swung hard my way. I mean, obviously, as soon as I got that double turn. So, but I did double Roger. I moved up, claimed an objective, got my minimum points, my battle tactic, cool, whatever. He got more points. All right, we go in. I roll a 6 for the double turn. He rolls a 1, which is endemic of the whole game. I go in. I had fought a screen of Arg Boys with my Rogue Idol turn 1. Crushed them, of course. Except for one guy left with 1 wound, which I was actually really happy about. Because I chose Broken Ranks for the only time all tournament. And I did it with a shooting attack from the Maw Crusher. I know.
It's funny.
Anyway, and I barely did it. So, that turn really swung the game. Because, of course, I wogged. I Violent Fury'd a unit of pigs in the Rogue Idol. And the Rogue Idol fought and killed his amuleted Maw Crusher without it getting to do anything back, and it had Finest Hour.
Jesus.
So I did, I think, 26 wounds to it. That's what got through the amulet and the armor save. Wow. So it was just a bad... He never got to use that 480-point model. He lost all the goblins, all the pigs. He actually did a really good Overwatch and just sunk a unit of pigs down to 1 guy. Of my pigs, because I brought 4 units of 3 pigs. So basically I broke the right flank with my Maw Crusher, the Rogue Idol, and the left flank was a dud. But that kind of swung the game. And then he failed his teleport. He had a special battle tactic about get 1 unit into your opponent's deployment. It's something for Big Wall. I don't quite know what it is. But he failed to teleport for it on a 7 4 times. I never had to roll to deny. He just failed. Rolled dirt. And then he chose Bring It Down.
He needs a Rogue Idol.
Bring It Down against my Rogue Idol. Did 14 mortals to it, and I rolled that 5 up, and I passed all but 3. So I made 11 5-up saves. So the Rogue Idol survived with 1 wound left, and then I healed it with my prayer. It was a bad game. It definitely went my way ever since I crushed that Maw Crusher. So, but he was a good guy, really fun to play with, and I did learn some things from him. He's got me looking at a Cruel Boys list with the little goblins in them, because I think that's an interesting combination.
Gobblepalooza?
Yeah. It gives them some bodies. The shooters or stabbers you're talking about.
Oh.
Yeah,
because
the nets.
They don't have bodies, so if you take the goblins, you can actually have at least a screen to put in front of like what a lot of people are playing is the Bolt Boys, because I think that's what makes that army unique is the Bolt Boys, and a lot of their tech gives them playing competitive play. He's don't have the bodies, he's got Rippers overpriced, but you can kind of plug that hole with goblins and get a fairly decent army competitively. I still think it's like off meta and needs points reductions to be very competitive, but it's pretty good right now.
Just give Gut Rippers a 4-up save.
Yes, I'm not sure how you solve the problem, but Gut Rippers don't perform well enough to consider taking them, in my opinion, right now. It's
for 180 points for 10 now.
Yeah.
Yeah, they aren't worth it.
So I won that game pretty heavy. But then we go into round 3, Gavin. Who did you get?
I got Mr. Dimitri Hockard, who I have not been able to play yet. So I was really happy that I got to play him because he's been a staple of the Texas scene for as long as I've been a part of it. He didn't disappoint in any way. He's like one of the nicest human beings I've ever met and played Age of Sigmar against. He was playing Slanesh, which on paper sounds like it's a terrible matchup for Seraphon, but it wasn't as bad for reasons I'll kind of get into in my description of the game. He was playing Be'lakor in Slaanesh, so it very specifically gave him play against my army because he kept the Bastillodon out of the game for the first 2 rounds of the game, because it has the ability to make you roll to use your unit, and he kept rolling 3+ to deny my ability to use the unit. And I think the third mission was Tectonic Interference, if I'm not mistaken. So
yeah,
what he did, which was super smart on his part, was he took first turn with the intent to use Be'lakor, took the board, scored a bunch of points, pushed really hard with the Keeper's Secrets into my deployment zone, and I got into some skinks. Didn't really do enough damage to do anything meaningful because of coalesced shaving points of damage off of his attacks. So he didn't spike any mortals. So killed maybe 8 or 9 skinks, and then roll over to my turn. I got the board back with my bodies, and couldn't kill the Keeper because I didn't really have the resource to devote to it because he had my Bastillodon locked up. I kind of picked at some other pieces that he had on the board with the various mortal wounds that Seraphon has. Took the board back with my bodies and started chipping at the pieces that matter in his list, which was Glutos, the Keeper, and Be'lakor, where I could. And then we go to the turn roll off. I win the turn roll off. I debate giving him the turn, but which in hindsight I don't know how it would have played out, but I did take the turn because I liked where I was, because I had moved up with the Engine of the Gods to curse Glutos, and then I had moved my Slan over towards the Keeper of Secrets with Mystical and Forging, and like in preparation to take the double turn. And so I got the double turn. I get curse off on Glutos, and I break the Keeper's Amulet, which was huge, like both of those sequences. And then I was able to get both of those pieces off the board, even without the Bastillodon, and almost table him. I kind of pushed him back into, he had Be'lakor and maybe 1 or 2 more units, and that's kind of where he was for his turn 2. He did have a lot of summoning points because of the nature of Seraphon. A lot of chip damage baked into Seraphon, and I couldn't afford to not use it because the Bastillodon wasn't on the board. So he was accumulating lots of summoning, but I had played the board to a state that it didn't really matter because his summoning points were so compacted onto one side of the board that he wasn't going to be able to play the board well enough and also do enough damage to my army to get back in the game. Kind of played out from there in that way. But super awesome game. I would have liked to see what he would have done if he would have won the turn roll off. I'm sure he would have taken it, and I would have liked to see how that turn played off.
Bunch of Seraphon fanboys in the chat.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, the army's good, dude. It might get points adjusted. Sad. Terrible.
So did he use a Soul Feaster? Or did he just proxy?
Yeah, he did. No, he had a Soul Feaster with an amulet. That was the Keeper he took. It's cheaper, I believe.
Yep.
And he liked he mentioned that the depravity it generates in combat is really nice, and it's by itself a lot of the time, so its command ability doesn't matter as much. So on the back end, he would summon the Keeper with the command ability, and that was kind of his game plan.
That's cool.
Was to double fight with the summon stuff. So it's really good list design. An excellent player. It's still Hedonites, so it has some shortcomings, and especially against Seraphon, where I can control his magic really well, and then also threaten him with the Bastillodon enough to demand attention from Be'lakor. Kind of makes it really hard for his list to play against mine. So, but great game. I was able to take it, and that was my game 3.
Mm-hmm. I played Big Ben Richardson from Dallas Defenders. Boy, we started out right from the get-go. It's like 2 good old boys. He was like, "Hey man, what's up?" Because you remember me from Houston. Both of us had a big lip of Copenhagen in. We were like, "This is going to be fun, no matter how it shakes out." Like,
as someone who played behind them, I can confirm.
Like, it was one of those games where it was highly competitive all the way to the end, but it didn't get chippy in any way, because both of us were making some crazy rolls, and um, typically when someone's dice are hot, their opponent wants to cry about it, but I think at one point he rallied back like 11 out of 17 Sentinels or something. It was crazy, but so the real kind of disadvantage in my list versus that list is he's a 1 drop with 50 Sentinels and Severus, and I'm a 14 drop with really one character that helps my list go in that. But he was able to. We deployed. I tried to deploy my. I guess in hindsight, I put my butcher and my tyrant in a bunch of cover and in range of the mall pot to kick it if I died. I mean, if I didn't die. And I guess in hindsight, I probably just should have stuck them on the edge of the board. But me knowing that he's got speed of Hish and all the other things that he had access to, um, well, if I deploy so far back that I can't counterpunch, then I think I'm more out of the fight. So I'm just gonna have to risk it if he's able to get the tyrant and the butcher on the turn on that turn one. And he was. So he rolled up his I think it was his 20 block. His 20 block shot at my butcher, at my tyrant, and did 9 mortal wounds. That's 9 mortal wounds on 19 shots. Like, it was wild. So, and again, that's the time of the game where a lot of people like to get chippy and frustrated. I was like, whatever, let's just move him over and we'll keep going. And then he shot the 30 block and got the butcher. And that was kind of the turn. I think he came up and scored every objective, kind of just touching them. Neither one of us wanted to really overexpose, so he didn't. He came up and just had like a model or two on every objective. So I took the turn, went back up, took every objective, and did a lot of damage. I did a good amount of damage to the Sentinels, killed a good chunk of them. And held the objectives, and then I think he won the turn roll off. I just took the objectives and killed what Sentinels that I could, and then I think he won the turn roll off. We did some more shooting back and forth. The really kind of play was there was, I think, a roll off between 2 and 3, and I rolled a 5, and I was like, yes. No, because I had won the roll off, so I had doubled from 1 to 2. So I had been able to really apply damage before getting shot again with all those Sentinels. So I was able to hit them pretty hard. And on turn 1 also, I had shot Severus. I shot almost my whole army at Severus on turn 1 because, wind spirits give me nightmares. So I shot almost my whole army at him on turn 1. And he kept making I think he had a ward save, and he just kept making it. But then he was in charge range of a unit of lead belchers, and so he moved him backwards, but he was also in charge range when he went backwards of Hrothgorn, who charged him and did some mortal wounds on the charge and took Severus out. So then I doubled and was able to start focusing on, because I needed to get Severus off the board. That's a tool you got to take away early. And then I doubled and started shooting Sentinels, and was taking them out pretty well. I think that his 30 block, I had it down to 2 models. And rookie mistake, I charged Hrothgorn in, and also the Lord Regent was there, and he was playing Scion. So we all know the command trait on the Lord Regent was goading arrogance. So I had to punch the Lord Regent with Hrothgorn, and I screwed up another turn. I put the mortal wounds from one of the cannons in the wrong place. The mortal wounds that I was getting off charging the Iron Blasters was just on point this weekend. When I had to charge them, they just blew things up on the charge. And where on turn 3, we were talking about it. Like, I think he thought that I had the game in the bag, and the pivotal screw up was there was a small unit of wardens that were on the board, and I wanted to get them off. I just needed to get. I just didn't want those things are hard enough to kill. I didn't want him rallying them back on the board. So I charged in, and I think I had one wound on a lead belcher, and he popped the flask and did 3 mortal wounds and killed a lead belcher. So that was the only lead belcher that he killed. But when I piled in, like, I didn't take into consideration the terrain piece that the Cathaller had squatted her ass on. So I didn't account for the extra range that the terrain piece gives to her. So that unit of 3 lead belchers was negative 15 bravery that turn and only lost the 1 model. And so I lost that unit of lead belchers. And then it happened at some other point. It's just that Cathaller sitting in that terrain piece is nuts. Like, on the range of emotional transference. It is, you really have to account for it. And where I screwed up, really, because I was trying to pile in to where I could get enough attacks to kill the unit, but not draw in the other unit of wardens, because I don't want 10 other wardens with their 48-inch range and to be able to bang on those. I wanted to get that unit off the board so that I could control that side of the table. That's what I wanted to do. I was already controlling the right side. I wanted to control the outside, and then a big chunk of his army was there in the middle, so I didn't want to fight over the middle anymore. So when that unit ran, it was like, what do I do now? So then we went into the turn roll off, and I rolled, like, that's when I rolled the 5, and I'm like, okay, I got this. If I win this turn roll off, I'm going to score all of the objectives again, and I have this. And he rolled the only die that he could beat me on was a 6, and he took the turn. And then even at that point, it wasn't over. Like, we had a tight game. I mean, we were tied going into round 5 and tied on victory points, and he won the roll off. Like, I didn't have points. I didn't have units to score after he won that roll off anymore. So he scored max points on that turn, and that's what the game ended on. Like, so I think I lost by 6 points. So it was 22-28 at the end, something like that.
Still, man, to push like Lumineth that hard with ogres is, I think, proof of concept. Like, the list is good. Like, you can get plenty of mileage out of Underguts, despite the metrics and stats and all these things that people reference to say this army is unplayable. Well, I mean, it pushed a Lumineth list that went 5-0 to the breaking point. Like, so I think the list has plenty of play. The book has plenty of play. You just have to know where to find it, how to apply it.
Yeah.
I will tell y'all for sure, I did not want to come up against Brian at all.
Well, he took a big chunk of my synergy and my damage. Like, just killing that tyrant right off the bat and the butcher, like, cut my damage in half. Like, it's one less shot on every Iron Blaster for the entire game. And then with Total Eclipse being a thing, so I was only generating the 1 CP per turn that I could never use. So I was basically tossing a command point in the trash every turn because of Total Eclipse. There was one turn where I was thinking about saving my Dispel for Total Eclipse, but he rolled really low for Lambent Light, and I was like, that is probably more important to keep units on the board right now than worrying about command abilities. So I dispelled the Lambent Light. And he afterwards, he was like, yeah, that was the play. Like, if I'm re-rolling with all these, because, I mean, like I said, I had him down to, I think, a total of like 12 or 14 Sentinels left on the board. And he just rallied those jokers back, man. It was, at the end, like, he had his whole army still sitting there almost, it felt like. But I could never rally. It was a great game. Ben was a fantastic opponent. I would play him 100 times and never complain once. Even though I was playing one of the most oppressive armies in the game, or against one, it never felt unfun. And that's just the type of opponent he was. It was a great opponent, great game, very competitive from start to finish, and would not change the outcome one bit. Would not want to change it. It was great. He played his tail off and went 5-0 at that event. So happy for him. So it was a great game. Great game 3. And granted, I was a little bummed. I was so close to 3-0 on day one with Underguts after talking mad shit Friday night. I was telling everybody how I'm about to get them with Underguts. And James O'Brien kept coming by every time I was playing, and my opponent was like, "Yeah, Underguts are terrible, right?" Like,
That's awesome. How was your game 3, Mr. Miller?
It was actually kind of crazy. I went up against somebody who had triple Maw Crusher. That was
It's like, I like that War Scroll.
yeah.
Just give me that one, dude.
He specifically said that he just wanted to bring a low number of models, but he didn't want to bring giants. So I was
Okay.
like, all right. I think he was coming from Colorado. So
give
and
me 3 monsters.
yeah, it was 3 Maw Crushers, War Chancer, a Shaman, and then like 3 units of Ardbors.
5 Ardbors.
Yeah. And so I was like, man, on Tectonic Interference, I mean, he could literally just sit 1 on each objective, and I'm not sure I can really do anything. So I was kind of trying to. I was like, if he makes me go first, I'm probably gonna lose because of that. You know, like we talked about earlier with the Iron Jaws double turn. So I what I did was because he hadn't fought Gits before, or specifically trolls, and so I was telling him how my list worked, and he seemed really interested in my general. And so what I did is on the battle plan, I stuck him up by himself, like way up in the front, and just 3 inches behind, or like 2.9 inches behind, I had the 6 rockets, and then I did the same thing with Mollog, about 12 inches away, and then in between them, I put the moon, or the Loon Shrine, and so I kind of had my army in this like really awkward position, and then I had 3 rockets like sit on the far side, like, you know, something that I tried to make it as uninteresting as possible, because I was like, well, hopefully he bum rushes me, and then I can steal a flank while going up the center board. So it's exactly what he did, because he's like, I'm gonna do Slay the Warlord, and yeah, I'm going first. And so I was trying to bait him into it. So I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna finest hour my general, and I'm like, come and get me. So he moves everything up, and he
sad.
goes right past. Doesn't even get all 3 of the objectives. He only gets 2 of them, and then he moves up all his Maw Crushers. He teleported one of the Maw Crushers, and then didn't Mighty Destroyer it for some reason. So he's like, oh well, he's just gonna sit there anyways. I should be fine. So then he moves up with a 2, charges my general, charges Mollog, and then I unleash hell on one of them and do like 5 damage or something. And then,
okay there, Justin?
and then he's like, oh, and he also finest houred his Maw Crusher too, that he also put the buff up, and he put Violent Fury on, like he put everything on it, and I'm like, Jesus Christ. So then I was like, I'm gonna all out defense my Trog boss, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna attack the Trog boss. I'm like, well, are you putting all of the attacks in there? Because I wanted to make sure he was actually going to do that. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna throw everything into it. Does the axe attacks? I fail all of them and die because he wad turn 1, and I was like, oh, you killed him. And he's like, oh, I didn't even get to do the mount attacks. I was like, yeah, like he's not that tough. And then he's like, okay, well, I'm gonna smash and bash on Mollog, and he kills Mollog. I'm like, all right, you got it. And then then I pile in with all my Trogs, and I kill one of them. I do 18 damage on the one that has Amulet of Destiny, and then it goes down to like 14. He ended up still taking 14 damage. And then the other one had 5 damage. Well, then it was at the bottom of my turn, and I killed both of them. And so I only lost Mollog and my boss, but he lost 2 two of his Maw Crushers, and they were the only Maw Crusher he had left was the one that had nothing on it.
So just to make it clear, how many points are Mollog and your Trog?
250 and 175, and he lost 2 times 480.
960.
Yeah, and I took one of the objectives, so between the two, like
trade.
it was only a couple. He was only like 2 points higher than me, and then I won the roll off, and the moon went to the center. So then I just I bum rushed in, and I killed his entire army on turn 2, and he surrendered. And he congratulated me on baiting him really hard.
Yeah.
He specifically said he's like, I'm gonna go bitch out my friend over at the 40k table because he said trolls suck.
Well, nothing sucks.
Well, if you kill him,
whole army turn 1.
I'm like, hey, you killed everything you touched, man. What are you talking about? And I mean, I sincerely think like he could have made me go first, and then I would have had to.
Then he would have smashed and bashed with all 3 of his Maw
Right.
Crushers, and he could have killed 3 units of trolls
Yep.
or whatever,
Easy.
3 units
Easy.
or whatever he wanted to.
He could have split his attacks into every single one of them and easily killed half my army in one turn. And then if he wanted to roll off, it would have just been game over.
But he has to do the Iron Jaws plan, which is go first, take your one off, and ram it as deep in your opponent's army.
Those are your people, though. Those are your people.
It's not my people.
You know, it's honestly like, great sport. I mean, like usually when people do that, they're just they get a little pissed off because they think I did. And I apologize to him. I was like, hey, I didn't mean to feel like I tricked you or anything. He's like, no, you explained everything to me. I just completely tricked myself into thinking I could smash your army in one turn. And so he's like, that was 100% on me. So it was one of those things where I was like, okay, I actually have a chance at going 3-2 now. So it was really funny. Like that was something that was for the history books.
Doesn't go 3-2.
Mm-hmm. So how
Does
about
he go 2-3 or 4-1? What do you guys think?
Best player.
But
in the
Justin, how did your game 3 go?
All right. So I played Austin Parisi. Believe I'm saying that correctly, and I think he's a Houston guy. And when we walked up to the table, I looked at his list on BCP. He looked at my list. I handed it to him. He went, "This is going to go really bad for me," and I went, "Probably," because he had a Stormcast list that was built to fight in combat against probably one of the best combat armies in the game currently. So,
Maybe.
all Iron Jaws players,
Decent.
listen, look, I'm 2 drops. I deployed and then let him go first. I know.
Stop going on. Stop going on. The only chance we got against Iron Jaws is that they think the play is to all out attack, War Canter, what's that? Violent Fury, and find a Stour or a Maw Crusher and ram it right in the middle of the army. If they learn that that's not what you do, then we're gonna all be in trouble. We'll never be Iron Jaws again. So stop telling them.
Who would have thought? Let's just take my model that just does my whole army, makes everything work, and just put it in the middle of your stuff without any support.
Yes or yes.
The NFL theme song plays, dog. He's got to go in.
If anyone's curious, I did not do that. So, I let him go first, and he had 3 annihilators.
I like your options for best player in the world here.
Yeah, yes or yes.
I let him go first, and he had 3 Annihilators, a big 10-man block of Vindicators, and 2 5 Liberators, a unit of the Protectors with the big glaive, Bastion, a Lord Relictor with the Translocate, and the guy that's doing the superhero landing, Gabriel. Yeah, he had that.
Superhero landing's a different dude.
Oh,
Gabriel is the old.
is the
You're talking
Sorry.
about
Artist Hammerhand?
yeah.
that sounds.
Okay, well that's
So
right.
Artist Steel Soul.
Gardus, yeah.
that one.
Steel Soul, yeah. They have so many
So-
fucking characters. Why? Why GW? Why do they have all these stupid ass named characters that nobody fucking plays, man?
Yeah, just give them one that doesn't
There's
suck.
like 80 units. There's
40,000 that suck.
Vindictors and Vindicators. Why?
So-
Vigilers.
To start
Why?
the game off, he did the Bastion thing and picked the Maw Crusher and rolled 18 dice looking for a 6. Got 1 6. I amuleted it because why not? He dropped down a unit of Annihilators, and I deployed to make sure all my important stuff was outside 10 of even the one unit he could bring down within 7, so he couldn't do chip damage to the things that make my army work. So he came down, did mortals to pigs, charged pigs, rolled really bad. I all-out defensed because the Maw Crusher's awesome, and lost 1 pig. To be fair, I attacked back and killed 1 Annihilator with 2 units of pigs. So a lot died that turn.
Well, I mean, they have a 2+ save, so.
Also true. So he got all the objectives, and he got his battle tactic, which was, I believe, run 3 units. And so my turn came up, and I teleported my Maw Crusher across the battlefield, 12 inches away from Bastion, and then Mighty Destroyer 2 units of pigs up to follow him. After Violent Furying the unit of pigs and the Maw Crusher, did those first.
Let's
Then I
talk
used-
about how big brain these plays are. Like, I moved my army 13 times in 1 minute. I'm so fucking smart.
Get on his
Give me
level,
another
Brian.
room for my brain.
I'm gonna need support. I'm gonna need support to hold it up.
Get this through the
Dude,
net
this game's
brace.
easy as fuck when I can move 13 motherfucking times before I get
Yeah,
it.
get this through the net brace to hold that big old brain up.
Let me fight
Yeah.
every before you get to as well.
God damn, how do y'all struggle so much with it? Y'all can't move
Well,
4
here,
times
hold
in
up.
hero phase?
For all the Iron
come on,
Claws
dog.
players, here's the other key to winning. When you get into combat, you remember smashing and bashing is a rule.
Oh, yeah.
They never
You
forget
could do
that.
a lot too. Yeah.
So I fought and killed Bastion with just the guy on top. And then fought and killed the Liberators with the mount. So the pigs ended up being over there just to score points. I tiptoed my Rogue Idol into the Annihilators. He wiped them off. And then because I'm Bloodtooth, I moved my pigs just to tiptoe onto the objectives and steal all the objectives from him. So I got that. We rolled for double turn, and wouldn't you know it, I got a 6. And he got a 1. So I went twice. And wiped out almost the rest of his army.
I'm sensing a pattern. Like just
Yeah.
play Iron
Yeah.
Jaws, win the double.
Table your
Make
opponent by turn
Make
2.
them go first, and then move 4 times and get into combat, and then win turn roll off. That's the recipe to success.
Easy,
Nice.
50% chance.
Giant orbit around his brain, dude.
Just awesome. You look like the fucking yellow dude on the fucking Green Lantern movie.
His name is gonna be etched in that shield for all time. Don't forget.
For all of time.
Yeah.
Till the end of eternity.
Like, damn, look at this guy.
Austin played out his second turn, came down, took the middle objective with the 10-man unit of Indicators, and that was about it. And then we rolled off, and I got to go at the top of turn 3. And I did my fight and killed the Vindicators, and we pretty much called it from there and talked it out. I always tried to give I always felt really bad, and I know maybe I shouldn't, but I always tried to give my opponents as many battle tactics as possible when talking it out at the end. But so at the end of day 1, I ended up going 3-0 along with Gavin over there.
Right on.
Decent as Sigmar.
Well, I had reached my goal. My goal for the weekend was 3-2. So then I was like, all right, I'll try my next games. But, I'd already got where I really wanted to get. So
Then you get Trevor with Die Haunt on 1 hour sleep, dog.
Mm.
Easiest game of my life.
I've gotten Trevor twice in the second round of the GT now.
But okay, so we'll go to my game 4.
Spicy chicken.
The mission was survival of the fittest, I believe, right? Where you chose predators and prey.
Instead of
so I got to play against.
It should be called Apex Predator, but
Yeah, something. Yeah, whatever. But I got to play against Joe Vujic, I think is how I say his last name. Sorry if I mess it up. But he is an Oklahoma guy, and I went up to Oklahoma for one of John Napik's tournaments a couple weeks ago. I think maybe 2-3 weeks ago, and he's also local. He's local to that scene. I didn't get to play him when I went up there because I think he was out of town on some kind of business or something. So I was really excited to be able to play him because all the guys there, like Joe Vujic is the fucking man. Like he's one of our most competitive players, and all those Oklahoma guys are awesome. And I had a great time up there. So I was really excited to play him specifically, and his list design's actually awesome. Like you see Hammerhall, but it doesn't that's not the full story. So Hammerhall's kind of obscure and doesn't get taken a lot because it's got some really weird mechanics to the army. Well, one of them being you get to fight twice at the end of your combat phase for a CP if you're in your opponent's deployment zone. And what he was doing with his list is that he was taking the Celestin Prime, which has the ability to stay off the board, and then deep strike and auto make a charge. And then if it's in your deployment zone, fights twice. So suddenly the Celestin Prime, which kind of struggles to do damage on paper, you're getting 10 attacks at 3 damage and 3 rend from a model that can come out of deep strike, auto make a charge, and then also do mortal wounds in the shooting phase when it comes down. So it's a really awesome scalpel piece that you can take in that army. And then he also had a unit of 4 fulminators, which are just great right now because of the war scroll. And if they get into your deployment zone, they can get really hard to deal with. And then he had a Griffin and some other support pieces around that. That was his core. But we kind of set up my predator units that I pick are the monsters in my army, which is Engine, Bastillodon, and the Chief on Stegodon. Because that's what's going to be safe in my army, and that's what's going to be able to do enough damage to kill predator units if they expose. So I felt really good about those choices. He picked the Griffin, Fulminators, and since the Celestin Prime wasn't on the battlefield, he actually couldn't pick it. So he wound up picking, I think, 6 of his Demigryph Knights. He had a unit of 6 Demigryph Knights, and that's what those are his 3 predator units. And he was lower drops than me, so he decided to go first, which I think, in hindsight, is probably a mistake. I think all of my opponents got to dictate turn and all chose to go first in the game, which was super interesting because I don't think that's the right call at all against Seraphon. Because if you expose to a double turn against Seraphon, you have got to be prepared to take a lot of damage. And I don't think that a lot of my opponents anticipated that they were going to take as much damage as they did, specifically when they drove or got into my deployment zone and got cursed with skinks, which happened in this game as well. He took his Griffin and got into my deployment zone. With his double fight mechanic, he actually got 30 skinks off the board. He rolled pretty well, but it was within curse range. So on my turn, that's a Predator unit and his Warlord, which is sitting in front of all of my army. So what I do, he has got his Demigryph Knights tagging the objective on the side. He only has 2 of them on the objective. I move 5 Saurus Guard onto the objective and force him to make a decision, right? He's got to either hold on to his redeploy for his Griffin to make my application on Slay the Warlord more difficult, or he can redeploy Demigryph Knights to take that objective and hold on to it. And he chose to redeploy onto the objective, so it basically leaves me free access to his general, his free general on Griffin. And I get curse off, I get all the mortal wounds off. Shielded and fighting and soured, but it just doesn't matter. I just have so much damage to push through on the model. I kill it with the Skink Chief. I think on the charge with charge mortals is what wound up happening. And so I get a Predator unit, I get my battle tactic with a monster, and I kill a monster, and I get the board. So I'm getting 8 points on turn 1, whereas he only got his regular battle tactic and the points he got from the board. Because he went in with the general, he didn't get the middle objective, so he only got one objective and hold more. So you got 4 battle points. I'm at 8, and then we roll off and I double him. So, or no, he wins the roll off and chooses to take it. Sorry. And he brings down the prime, and the way that the skink chief had come up and applied damage to the to his griffin, which I had anticipated, I'd stacked the priest ability on him for +1 save. I had mystic shielded him, and then I finest houred on his turn because I knew that if I was going to have to get those points, I was going to have to expose the chief to a double turn potentially, and it does. He battle tactic was to, I think he did bring it down on the skink chief, which was I was fine with because I knew how tanky it was going to be. His fulminators were close enough to get into combat, but he had to make a really long charge. Only got 3 into combat on the first swing, and with all of the ablative toughness that I stacked on the model, he just wasn't able to do any damage. I think he did 4 damage to the chief, and it killed 3 fulminators back. So he lost his other hammer unit that he was going to have to get a lot of usage out of in the game. He lost that hammer unit on his turn and got 4 wounds on the skink chief for it, which was a poor trade. But he knew it was a poor trade. He was playing to win the game at that point because his path to victory was he had to kill the skink chief. And even though it was like low percentage, like he had to get that model off the board if he's going to have a chance. Because it was going to get the center of the board back and then also get a lot of points. He brought his Celestant Prime down and killed my my Star Priest that was garrisoning the terrain piece, which was a decent call also, but the way he brought it down left it in curse range on my turn. So he kind of traded the Celestant Prime for my General, which on paper isn't very good. It's his other hammer unit that he has. So by the end of my turn 2, he's lost his Fulminators, he's lost the General, and he's lost his Celestant Prime. And he's lost most of his backfield too. The only thing he really has is the Demigryph Knights up on the corner of the board holding that objective. So the game was pretty much decided at that point. We kind of talked the rest of the game through. But super awesome guy. I really like his list design. I think that he was just a little bit unfamiliar with the matchup. So he was very used to playing certain moves against other armies that he hadn't been punished for before. And my army just had the tools to punish those plays. So, and we kind of discussed it during the game and as the game developed. And he knew, like he's a really good player and he's smart enough to know what's happening as the board develops. He just didn't know. He didn't have prior knowledge that let him make the right decisions. But if we were to play the game again, it would be a completely different game. And I was happy that we were able to play the game. So that was my game 4 against.
Well, his list has inspired me because I have been trying to make Hammerhall work since the Cities of Sigmar book dropped. And I bought about a year ago a Prime, and I got him painted up to play in there. And it's been an army that I've been wanting to take out. So I am probably going to get that together for Dallas because I like how it works. Like a good general.
The Prime in Hammerhall is awesome. Like I love that combination because it gives you such a scalpel piece and it gives you real damage too because you can fight twice. And if you can afford to stay in your off the board until turn 3, like you're looking at 7 attacks, I think, which is 14 attacks. So
with the Fulminators and the Demigryph Knights, like you don't even have to expose your Griffin really that early. With the Demigryph Knights, they hit pretty hard. The Fulminators, you have enough damage potential for that turn 3 Prime to drop in there and just end a game. Like come in and just shut a game off for your opponent. Usually like turn 3, we're all we're starting out with 100 to 110 wounds, and we're usually at about 65 wounds left on the table going into turn 3, and a Prime dropping in could just decimate what your opponent has left, and especially if you haven't overexposed your Griffin, and that's your turn that you explode.
I could see how he had like a prepared battle plan almost, where I could see how it worked for his first 3 games, where he goes in with the Griffin, stages his counterattack with the Fulminators, and that's how he staged on the board. And I think on every other one of his games, the Griffin was tough enough to just not die. And then whatever was in the Griffin was pinned for the Fulminators to countercharge onto. And then also the Celestia Prime was staying out of orbit to threaten the back line of whatever he was playing against.
Yeah.
So I could see that was the game plan, and I could see how deadly of a game plan that could be if someone wasn't privy to it, right? I just knew what his army did.
Coalesce
Had the tools to deal with it. Yeah.
Yeah, Coalesce has so much damage reduction, and like I could see in that particular matchup.
It's a lot of dispersed threat. Like my army is like it's hard to attack because there's not a lot of consolidated threat anywhere. Like every unit is important. Every unit can do damage. A lot of the buffs are universal, so there's just not really a way to attack the list effectively, especially on 1 or 2 turn sequences. You have to grind the army down over time and have the tools to do that in a way that I can't grind you down better, and Seraphon's great at grinding. So that's kind of how the matchup went. How was your game 4, Brian?
I drew another Dallas defender with a beautiful. I drew Michael Wynn with a beautiful Daughters of Cain army, and I was very familiar with the matchup. I have a painted one sitting on my shelf right now. I know how the army works, and we had similar threat ranges. You know, the cool thing: Iron Blasters outrange bow stakes by 1 inch, so I could deploy inside my threat range and outside of his, and then give him that really tough decision. Like, I'm not in hero face shooting range for anything. So you either have to give me the turn, or you take the turn and use your Iron Scale and move up, and get your bow snakes into range to really attack. And I guess he had kind of talked about the list with Ben the night before, so he kind of he knew the Tyrant was an issue and had to go. So we did the. We deployed. I was completely out of range of everything, and he still chose to take the turn. And he ran. He did the run and shoot command ability. Okay, let me back up. So we marked our predator units. This is important. We marked our predator units, and he marked the Iron Scale, both Marathi and Shadow Queen as his predator units. So on turn 1. He moved up the bow snakes, and I don't remember. They got some wounds on the Tyrant. I think they got whatever the mortal wounds were that went through on the Tyrant. So Tyrant was fine. And then brought the Shadow Queen up. The Shadow Queen wasn't able to get up into charge range, but she was able to get in shooting range, get a little bit of shooting, and brought up the Steed of Shadows, brought up the Blood Wreck Shrine, and failed the charge with the Blood Wreck Shrine. But did a lot of damage to my screen, so all I did is auto ran. But they only picked on 1 unit of Noblars. So auto passed them, ran them out of the way. Auto ran the other unit of Noblars, the other 20 block, and just built a new wall in front of my army with Noblars. So. And I had them deployed in a double stack in a U shape, so that when he took 1 block off, I was able to basically just shift the whole up the front rank of the other one all the way around. But on my turn, I got the Blood Rack Shrine, killed it, and dropped in Hrothgorn, sneaky little Hrothgorn, who was able to on turn 1 get 3 wounds on Marathi, who was hanging out behind the army. So Wynn put 3 wounds on Marathi, and then the Shadow Queen piled in and killed him. But I did the easiest trade of my life. You give me Marathi in the back, I'm going to go get my 3 wounds with Rothcorn. Don't care. And then he actually won the turn roll-off, which was fine. I had reset up my screen. He won the turn roll-off, brought Marathi into the Noblars, and I mean, I think she chopped them up pretty good. I think she swung over. I think she had range into one of the Leadbelcher units and killed 2 Leadbelchers out of the 8-man unit. but then I think she took her 3 wounds coming in, so she was at 6. And then, but didn't get enough done with any of the shooting. He was in double shoot range, but just didn't get enough done with it because I think I had taken maybe 5 out of the unit, maybe 7 out of the unit from my shooting on my turn. So it was like half a unit down. And then Marathi had taken her 3 wounds coming in, didn't get enough done. Went into my turn, got my 3 wounds on Marathi. I think I did it with the Noblar Blast Gag. Noblar Blast Gag came in clutch all weekend. It was just like any time where I didn't want to waste shooting on something, it's like, well, let me roll 6 dice at it and see if I can pull out some mortal wounds. So did the Noblar Blast Keg. He had also brought up a 5-man unit of Combat Snake, and I had killed him down to a man. So I took on that turn. I took Broken Ranks and just charged an Iron Blaster into it and did like 4 more wounds and killed it, and got the Broken Ranks. And then I think I won the turn roll off after that, and was able to kill the Shadow Queen and Marathi, which I picked Bring It Down. So I got Bring It Down, and I got both Predator points, and killed all of his melee snakes, all of his bow snakes. The big surprise to him was that when I decided to come out of my little bubble of protection, how hard Iron Blasters hit in combat was better than he thought. Like, they came running out and, neg 2 damage a pop against, like, they move up 8 inches, they shoot into a 10-man unit of combat snakes. I think they killed 5 or 6, and then went in and just got the rest of them. And then the 4-man unit there was 1 or 2 maybe bow snakes left. It was the funny part. I was shooting it, and he went to his 5-up Philopane, or 6-up Philopane, and rolled 5 6s. I got 5 wounds through, left on a snake and a half, and made 5 saves. So forced me to come up and charge them. But on that turn, I got, I think, everything except the Iron Scale. Maybe I got the Iron Scale that turn too. But Michael Wynn's army was beautiful. He played it well. Underguts are like really good into that matchup with 165 wounds. Kind of similar to the same thing Gavin was saying, where the army, its damage pieces are so broken up throughout the whole army. There's not one thing that you can take away from me that just ends my play. Like, I don't lose a game because I lost something turn 1, or I can't use it turn 1. So it's a good game. Michael and I had a great game. I hope he enjoyed it. It was a pleasure to play him, and a pleasure because I was watching him as he was painting that army up on their Discord. It was just pretty awesome. But great game. It went my way. I was actually nervous as crap going into it because I was like, Doc, one of the better armies in the game. If the Shadow Queen can open me up quick enough, I'll lose too much to be able to win. But it stayed okay for me.
Nice. I kind of don't want to really talk about my game 4. I feel bad. I had a opponent, super nice guy. I ended up showing up a little late to game 4, and luckily he was very understanding. And then I actually had to go run off real quick for another 10 minutes. I feel like any other opponent would have immediately been like called foul on it, and I completely understand why they would have. But he was super nice, and he's like, "Hey, we're both just destruction players. Let's go ahead and just try to have a good time." So he was playing Foot Ogres, which I wanted to actually fight Brian, but he was fighting Doc or whatever. Yeah, whatever. And I just wouldn't have been dumb enough to run at you. How about that? Like, but long story short, the game only lasted maybe an hour.
You being like 30 minutes late to the game?
Yeah, including my lateness. It didn't last very long. We set it up, and then he was playing a little defensively, but he needed to capture the objective. So he got well within range of where my trolls could do it, and then I got the double turn, and when that happened, I ended up getting, especially, so his stuff was all like most of the foot ogres are 5-up saves. So, and most of my attacks are -2 Ren. So he doesn't have any saves whatsoever. And even with his Rens, he can rend me, but he doesn't have much -2 rend. So I have a save, and then most of my stuff has an after save too. So it's not like a hard counter by any means, but he really didn't have the necessary tools to take care of things. He did have a Stonehorn, which I was really nervous about, but he played very, very passively with it. And by the time he actually got to use it, he did kill some stuff, but it wasn't really anything that I was okay with. That I was like, oh, I really needed this to stick around. And then the Troll Hag really came in clutch because she put her Hag curse on the Iron Guts, I believe, the 4+ save guys. And then I ended up vomiting on them as well. So all my attacks that go into them are -3 rend, which they have no save against. So they ended up just getting obliterated. Because I wanted them to charge, so that I vomited on them, didn't charge them. On his turn, they ended up charging me, and I vomited on them still with Lookout Sir, and then I roared at them, so that they didn't get to do all that defense. So his entire army just had no saves, and I took all the objectives, and he ended up going down to, I think, just a single Iron Gut, and his he had one of the Frost Saber units in reserve and stuff.
Underguts this, right?
Huh?
That was the other Underguts list.
Yeah,
was there, right?
Yeah. He was running.
I wanted to talk to him and see why he chose that. I guess it was just because the buff on the lead belchers, maybe.
Yeah, I wasn't really too sure because lead belcher wise, he only had 4 models of lead belchers, and then he most of it was Iron Guts, and then he had a 12 block of Gluttons.
What was his general? Because the general
It
will
was
give you
the
-1 to
Butcher.
wound against missile weapons.
It was the Butcher, yeah. Or no, Slaughtermaster?
No, I believe it's a Butcher. I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's just better options. Like Blood Gullet, it's like the kind of the go-to for foot ogres if you're gonna
Yeah,
Well,
have lots of foot ogres.
I played that
Bloodsons.
same guy at Hammerfest, and he was playing Blood Gullet at that time.
yeah. It just nothing that he had seemed to really fit what he was looking to do. I mean, he had the wounds and stuff, but the problem is like he spread his army too thin, and then the buffs he put everything on the Gluttons, but they were on the other side of one of those big terrain pieces, so they were kind of just stuck there. And then when I put like a bunch of debuffs on them, and then slammed my Trog Boss and a bunch of Rock Guts into him, and I was killing like 4 or 5 at a time. So he just couldn't. He was making no saves.
3 flat damage is insane.
Yeah.
Like,
And then he
if
failed.
it's really just their application on trolls is where they struggle a little bit. Like once they get there, the damage is great.
Yeah.
It's just you're slow. That's really
Well,
the only downfall.
And
You missed it. He said he wanted to play me instead of that guy's Underguts. Like,
I had a turn where, yeah, my first turn, all my rocks landed on, even they're in 3 blocks, so, but I had all 5 of the units land on them, and I ended up killing just a ton of units, and he was outside of the battle shock buff range, so he was like, I think he lost a couple of models to battle shock too. So it's just nothing.
4 models to battle shock sucks.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he I think he rolled a 5 and he had lost 5, so he was like, and he had no CP left. So it was one of those things where it's just like, and the thing was one of the nice things with Gloomspike gets is they're kind of like Seraphon Light, with the CP and stuff, where it's like there were some turns where I had 5 CP, and I'm like, you know, I could use it on whatever I wanted. Where he only got the 1 or 2 that he started with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've debated, like in my list, I took the +1 to wound triumph because I always get the triumph. I debated changing it to the once per game just auto battle shot community for the Lumineth matchup because you know you're not always going to have the CP to be able to deal with emotional transference. So I think that may be one thing I changed with my list if I take it to Dallas. But I think I'm going to take that Prime.
Decision.
So, yeah, it ended up being like he had the points in the beginning, and I think all my games were like that, where they had the point bonus or the point lead in the beginning, but then they sacrificed their entire army by turn 3.
Yeah, it's too aggressive. Yeah, like
Yeah,
overestimated how tough they could be.
Yeah, and that was the same thing that all my opponents were like, wait, it's -2 Ren 3 damage? I'm like, yep. And they're like, has it always been that way? I'm like, yes. It always has been. they have not changed it. So
that's funny.
yeah, it was definitely one of those things where like most, you know, and that's the way that I like to play anyways, where and I know Gavin and I have talked about that a lot, where it's like it's one thing to know your army, but like if your opponent doesn't know your army, like you just automatically have the advantage, especially if you know their army either as well or better than they do. And so I have ogres and stuff. So other than the spells, I knew exactly what his army was capable of, but he didn't really know the full extent of what mine could do.
Dude, I know.
If you understand both armies, then you understand the interactions between the armies. You understand where the leverage points are, and like Age of Sigmar is a game of leverage in a lot of ways. And if you can, at least if you play for the leverage, and if you can get the leverage and all of the interactions, like you're just going to have a leg up.
Yeah.
Even if you start at a disadvantage, like you can very rapidly make that disadvantage up if you just know the leverage points.
Right, and that's why if you look at the tournaments and overall, I mean, I know it's a little off topic, but with Slanesh and Big One and Gitz, it's like a lot of people wonder how I went 4-1 with those, and it's like most of the time it wasn't me making it work; it was my opponents making some pretty fatal mistakes and not realizing what my army is actually capable of. Which, I mean, I always told them what I could do, but it's just such an information dump that no one can reasonably remember all the rules that army has. So, but yeah, that ended up getting me my 3rd win so far. So, how about you, Justin?
So Predator and Prey mission. I got Trevor, another Houston guy, yet again. I've been to 2 GTs this year, and I've got him in the second day twice now. He was thrilled about it. He was so happy to have me be his.
To preface this, he was trapped in a room with Mr. Kyle Valdez. Well, Kyle Valdez farted constantly, like throughout the entire night, and then at 3:00 in the morning, their fire alarm went off on their floor, so they had to evacuate. And I guess he went back to sleep at 6 or 7 in the morning. But so that was Trevor's Saturday to Sunday. So maybe give him a little bit of slack if he makes any
Trevor had
bad decisions.
Amazing day 2, especially Game 5. I'm going to talk about his Game 5 regardless.
Oh yeah, Caleb is in the chat right now, poised to talk about it again.
And Kyle bullying some kid.
Yeah, terrible.
You know, there were a couple of instances where people got a little aggressive and out of hand, but for the most part, I think the event overall, like the TOs handled those situations well. And none of those kind of it didn't spread. And the message I was trying to put out to everyone, and I know Gavin was doing the same way, is a year ago we couldn't do this at all. And to steal something from Gavin is like, don't overvalue the outcome. Like, enjoy the experience, and then the outcome will get there eventually. You're not going to win every game you play in the first time you show up and play, you know? So.
Well, and even when they started the tournament, they said, look to your left, look to your right. Half of you will lose your first game. All but 3 people.
What was
Not
that
half
losing
not
shit?
half of us.
I don't know what that
right?
means.
Not half of us.
I didn't hear that part. I didn't get the memo.
Yeah, all but 3 people lost the game, right? So, or 4.
So how'd your game go?
I hate the Predator and Prey mission. I'm gonna start that off.
No, Maw Crusher,
And I always choose just bullshit. I always choose things that don't matter. So I chose my 2 War Chanters and a 3-man unit of pigs.
You didn't want the extra points, huh?
No, I'll play the regular game, thanks. And honestly, my Maw Crusher and Rogue Idol did almost nothing the whole game. Let's see, I let Trevor go first, I know. All Iron Draw players. Stick with me, I'll explain why.
1 Iron Draw player.
Anyway, I let him go first because I kited and I knew what Night Haunt does because I've lost to Mr. Miller's Night Haunt. So it is possible, Trevor. I did. Anyway, that was in 2.0.
You went first and then it double turned you.
Let's see the establishment of the pattern here. It has a backstory.
Yeah, so he originally was going to place his units very aggressively, and I was actually thinking I fucked up because I make a little error sometimes where I don't leave enough room between my front line and my other pieces, and I need to get better with that, but we'll see what happens. I'll probably not because I'm a stupid orc player, but he was going to be very aggressive, and I was very worried about it. He had a big 10-man block of Hex Race on a flank, another 5-man unit of Hex Race on a flank, and then his big 30 block of, what are the little 25 mils, Evan?
Chain Rasp.
Chain Rasp, yeah.
Yeah, he had a big 30 block of Chain Rasps and a 10 block of Chain Rasps in his backfield denying the teleport, which, I mean, very smart. But when he was coming down, he took a long time, which I didn't mind at all. Because I know turn 1 is very important, and he knows it's very important, so that was fine. But he took a long time trying to decide if he was going to be aggressive or if he was going to turtle and just claim objectives. So he ended up, I believe he told me he kept characters out with the intention to be aggressive, but then ended up turtling anyway. Which is fine with me, but I don't know how the game goes if he's aggressive. It obviously comes down to dice rolls at that point, but I do feel it goes better for him than what ended up happening. So he went first. There was no combat. I redeployed a unit of pigs when his 10 block got close and made it a 9-inch charge to get to them, so that was okay. That was it. He came down, got his 5 points, 1 for 1, 1 for 2, 1 for more, and then the 2 battle tactics. His Predator and Prey units were a Black Coach, a Little Foot Hero, and Lady Oleander. And so my turn came up, and my Maw Crusher and Rogue Idol went left because I chose kill a battle line. Maybe no, I did not. I can't remember what I chose. It was a couple days ago now, but they went left and crunched a 5-man unit of Hex Race, and I did the tiptoe thing with the Rogue Idol and got him into the 10-man unit of Chain Rasps and wiped them off. And then my pigs got buffed up and went into his middle line and wiped out all 30 of his Chain Rasps in return for 2 wounds on 1 unit. So that was really bad for Trevor. Then we rolled off, and I got the double turn, and I swung around with my Maw Crusher and Rogue Idol, and got Violent Fury on the 2 units of pigs, and a 3d6 charge on the Rogue Idol, and healed the 2 wounds he did to my pigs with my heal prayer. and teleported my foot boss up, and then Mighty Destroyers did to get it in range, and proceeded to wah because I wanted the +1 to my charge. For not Ren does not matter against Night Haunt if you don't know. And I charged 6 pigs into the 10 block of Hex Race, killed 2.5 Hex Race with the Mortal Wounds. I charged the Maw Crusher and the Rogue Idol into his backline characters, Lady Oleander, his general, and then Ragnar, some dude in the chair.
Reikenor.
Yeah. I charged a 3-man unit of pigs into...
Or Kurdos is who you charged. The Craven King, that's the guy you charged.
Yeah, and then I charged him on the other side with a 3-man unit of pigs and did a couple mortals. And then I charged my foot boss into the character he had holding the crucifix on his back, providing the 5-up ward bubble.
Cruciator.
Yeah, and so when I went to combat, I chose that one first and killed him. So I got rid of his 5-up ward at the very start of combat, and then smashing and dashing.
Did he actually get the shooting off? I think Trevor said that he
did. He overwatched, and he got his one shot, but he did a wound.
You said
the Maw Crusher killed.
It didn't wound, or it did?
He did a wound.
Okay.
The Maw Crusher killed Oleander. The Rogue Idol killed the dude in the chair. The pigs killed another small little foot hero. And then I smashing and bashing one of the 3 units of pigs and wiped out all but 3 Hex Wraiths. He fought back with them, did very little, and then the other unit wiped out the rest. So he had the Black Coach and 2 foot heroes left after the end of my double turn. So yeah, and yeah. So we talked it out from there. I mean, obviously he didn't have much army left, but I always try to be generous. I talked him into, he probably couldn't, but I talked him into getting Slay the Warlord by bouncing his Black Coach over my lines and charging my Shaman, which is, so I tried to get, as always, I tried to get my opponent as many battle attacks as possible when we talk it out. And I got both of mine, or all 5 of mine every time. So it just, I have a lot of attacks, and I got rid of his ways of reducing damage, and he had pinned himself into a corner of the map. All of which were bad things for him. So Iron Jaws does what they do. I attacked a lot. I hit on a good value. Wound on a good value.
Yep.
Iron Jaws, dog.
Iron Jaws are super good right now. And then Night Haunt has play, but Iron Jaws is tough because there's so many, the volume of attacks, like you said.
I mean, against Night Haunt, honestly, the guys on top of my pigs are irrelevant. It's only 9 attacks, or 10 attacks. It's the pigs that do all the damage because they're 4 attacks apiece, 3s and 3s now. So,
yep, super good. That was round 4. Game 5 was Savage Gains, dude.
If you're curious,
another mission.
If you're curious, the way they did this was the middles, each one counted as 2 points. Just if you.
Well, that's already been FAQ because that's.
But so Savage Gains. I enjoy the mission design, even though Giants, like most missions, they abuse a little bit, especially if you have a Kraken Eater that can kick the objective out of their deployment zone. It abuses the scoring mechanics of the game a little bit, but that's neither here nor there. Giants are a problem for the packet as it sits. But coincidentally, I get to play one of the better Giant players by my estimation in the world, Chris Snelling. He's a local from Houston. He's been playing Giants since 3.0 came out, and he's played them at a very high level the entire time he's played them. He actually got, I think, 3rd or 4th place at Hammerfest as well with them. But that was my pull, and it was on Savage Gains, so I knew it was going to be a tough game because Giants play the mission really well, and it's piloted by a player who knows how to play the army at a high level. So this design was actually super interesting. So a lot of Giant players are playing other tribes, besides War Stomper, but I really think that there's a lot of power in the tribe of War Stomper. In various ways, I like the Man Crushers a little more, but he actually just played the tribe for the artifacts and the command trait. So he had 4 bigs. He had 3d6 charge, command trait, and the Club of the First Oak, and one on his Warlord, which is a really cool and interesting combination, because what it allows him to do is play very aggressively with a model that counts as 20 models and stands back up if it dies. So he can put it in a deployment zone and just be a huge problem as far as trying to move the model or deal with it in any way, which is really the only way you can deal with giants is by killing them. So that's a cool combination of artifact and command trait. He also has the customary Gatebreaker with Amulet that everyone has in their army. And then also another War Stomper with the Cestus armband that lets him reroll, has a full save reroll, which is one of the most overlooked artifacts in the book and the game, in my opinion, because it puts a full save reroll on a giant. And that's insane value, to put it mildly. But so that's his army. He doesn't have a Kraken Eater in his list, which definitely gave me more play as the game went on, because it kept his 4-point objective on the board, which was vital as the game developed. But so we deploy. He has 4 drops. He outdrops me. Decides to go first, like all my other opponents did. Takes the center, and then stages for a charge with his Warlord. Kind of not necessarily with the intention of taking the charge if he didn't get what he wanted, but he was just outside of 12, 3d6 charge, and he rolled like a 15. So he gave it some thought, and then decided there was a little hole where he could get to my Warlord, which had Master Magic and Hand of Glory. In hindsight, I'm not sure it was the right call as a resource trade, but he decided to charge the character. Well, he charged the skinks that were in front of the character and did minimal damage to the skinks, and then targeted the character with all of his attacks and killed the character. So he took away Hand of Glory very early, and one of my casts very early, but I'm not sure that the value of Hand of Glory was worth where he had to go positionally with his Warlord. Because to do that, he had to get within range of Curse on my turn, and I got the Curse off and killed that Gargant on first turn. And even though I wasn't able to take the board back, I was able to kill the Gargant in a way that let me equalize scoring. So he scored 7 because he got his battle tactic center and his objective, so 5+2. And then I took Slay the Warlord, and I did it with a monster, and only got the side objective back with bodies. So I got 3 from the board, and then I got 3 from my battle tactic, and I killed a monster. So I had scored 7 as well, which was pretty big as the game went on. We go to the roll-off. I was able to get the turn, and the way he had staged, man, it was like those Gargants are so tough to my army. Like I'm trying to use conventional damage, but I also have a lot of mortal wounds. But the way that the board had developed, none of my mortal wounds were really in range of the save reroll giant. So like I just ignored that giant for the entirety of the game just because I didn't have an ability to kill it. I went after the Gatebreaker that was on the other side that was that didn't have an artifact. Put a lot of wounds on it, and then kind of chipped away at the Gatebreaker with the amulet in the center of the map. And was able to, I kept that side objective, so I got 3 more from the board. Did the damage that I did, and then also I scored, I believe, Ferocious Advance with monsters is what I did that turn. And so I stayed at 6, which is pretty okay with the play. I would have liked to get more damage on the Gargants, but Gargants are what they are. And then he goes on his turn, and he pushes super hard for the center of my objective. So after that War Stomper had come in turn 1, he did enough damage with that to kind of make me disperse off of the objective a little bit, and I was kind of shifting to the side. threaten the side, and then also to threaten from there to stage to threaten his back objective was kind of the movement of my army. But he comes in with both of his gate breakers and does quite a bit of damage to the other skink block that wasn't affected by the War Stomper in turn 1, and then takes the objective, kills that skink unit down pretty good. But what was really vital on that turn was that he starts scoring the 4 points. So he scores 4 for mine, and then he scored 2 for the side objective, and then 1. So he scored 7 from the board, and then he scored his battle tactic, so he got 9 points that turn. So you really start to see how Gargants can stack the points up on this mission, and that's kind of how that turn went. We go to turn 3, and that roll off as well. And I have to take the turn at this point because he has 2 gate breakers on my back objective. He's going to score 4 points again if I can't move those, and they're also deep into my lines at this point because they've kind of cleared the screen. So they're going to start killing things that matter. So I take the objective. He burns his side objective that is left unattended. So the scoring state for the board condenses, and then my game plan is to kill the Gargants in the center. So he went up, he left his back objective unattended, so I took Conquer, intention of taking my Stegodon Chief over his Gargant and taking that objective. And then it kind of, as my hero phase developed, I got a lot of really poor rolls and missed rolls on things I needed, and I was starting to realize that I was going to need the damage from that Skink Chief to clean both of those giants up. But I had already taken Conquer on his back objective, and I can't miss those points. That's 6 points. I can't miss those points to stay in the game. So I roll the run, shoot, and charge for the Skink, fail it. I had already used Beastmaster earlier in the game, so I didn't have that. I had access to that to let myself run, shoot, and charge, so I don't get my bow shots. I can't charge the Gargant on the back end. I just have to remove the Skink Chief's damage out of the game for a turn, which was wind up being really vital as the rest of the turn developed because the Bastillodon flopped against the Gargant that was one of the Gargants that didn't have an amulet. Had 10 wounds left, and I did 4 wounds with 18 shots from Bastillodon. And the amulet Gargant in the center was about 16 or 17 wounds to start the turn, and I chipped it down to 6 wounds, but he just kept making saves. The engine can't finish it off, so the turn ends. I get 6 points for I get 6 points for getting his back objective and Conquer, but I can't get the side objective back, and I can't move these giants off my back objective. And at this point, I think the game is probably over. But we keep playing. He takes his turn. He scores the board again, besides his back objective, and he scores another battle tactic. I forget which one he took. Maybe kill something. Monsters Takeover is what he took. So he gets 8 more points, and then we go the turn roll off, and I really need the turn roll off to stay competitive in my mind, and I fail it. And so he gets turned into turn 4. And I think the game is decided at this point, but we keep playing. He's out of battle tactics to pick, so he picks the one from the White Dwarf, where you smash a terrain piece because he can do it on 2+ with the gate breaker, and the terrain piece is right next to my back objective. So, it looks like the logical play on the board. And when he starts to move towards it, I notice that to charge the terrain piece, he's going to have to eat Unleash Hell from the Bastillodon, and we kind of discuss it, and he assesses the risk, and then he accepts his risk on the Unleash Hell if he charges the terrain piece, because he has that Gargant Finest Houred, and he charges the terrain piece, and the Bastillodon rolls extremely hot. I think I had it was degraded at that point. I think I had 6 or 7 shots, and I wind up getting 4 wounds because the Skink Chief gave it +1 wound, which was still carried over because he had double turned me. So, but still, it's insane to roll 4 wounds on an Unleash Hell from Bastillodon, and then he fails all the saves. So the Gargant dies before it gets to do its battle tactic, and then he had removed it from my home objective. So that one sequence was a 6-point swing in the game. And it also gave me an opening because his Gargants are kind of cooked at this point. Like the one that was in the center had gone back towards his home objective, but it only had, I think, 3 or 4 wounds left at this point, and he didn't have control of my objective anymore. And he didn't get his battle tactics, so he only scored 2 points that turn and gave me the opening to get back in the game because next turn I killed the Gargant that went back towards his home objective. I keep scoring 4 points. I tie down his Gargant that's on the side, and then you roll the turn, roll off again. I get the turn this time. I take it. I get the back objective again, my home objective again, and I get Savage Spearhead with monsters. And we just process the rest of the game, and I win by 4 points. It's one of the closest and swingiest games of Age of Sigmar I've ever played. And Chris is a great opponent. I think he just he misjudged the risk assessment at that point in the game, I think, because it was unnecessary. I think that he was just playing for the battle tactic because he knew that I think the tiebreaker was the battle tactics scored over the course of the tournament, and I think that was kind of affecting his judgment a little bit more than it should have because it was just risk that he didn't have to take to win the game. And I think he should have probably played to win the game. Yeah, if he just stays on my home objective, he wins. Like, and because it's literally the difference in the game, but it's still razor thin and super close, and it only looks bad in hindsight because it played out the way it did, which was getting 4 wounds on an Unleash Hell with a Bastillodon and him flopping all of the saves. So it's easy to point at it in hindsight and be like, that was the wrong call, but if it goes the other way, it looks like the right call. So, just super competitive, great guy, great player. And I'm looking forward to playing him again. He's going to be a staple in this master scene this year because he's just, whatever he's going to play well. So, that was my game 5.
Well, I got paired into, so day 2, I just went through Marathi and 15 bow snakes, and I get paired into Marathi and 15 bow snakes. So I was like, all right, and I came up to this guy, Grant, awesome. I think it's Grant from California. And hey, if you get to watch this, I know you gave me your number, and I didn't just not invite you to the Discord. I lost that piece of paper. So shoot me a message on here. I'll get you into the Houston Discord. I just lost it. I'm sorry. Yeah. So it's the most awesome part about my Underguts build is I'm 14 drops, but I have 2 units that go in Deep Strike. These 1 drop and 2 drop armies, I'm like, whatever, deploy your whole army, and then I'll deploy mine, and then we'll see where it goes. So he had deployed, but he had only deployed the way he had deployed. I did my normal Underguts deployment. I'm 1 inch out of his range. Inside my range. So if you'd given me the turn, I would have been able to apply all of my damages. I would have been able to get the lead belchers on him, but it didn't matter. And he only had 4 models on his home objective. And I was like, because he was debating really hard on whether he was going to take the turn or give it to me because trying to force me to expose to double shooting bow snakes, which I would not have done because I could have put the way that he deployed, I could have put Hrothgorn and the 3 Noblars that come with him and taken his home objective on turn 1 and taken both side objectives on turn 1 and scored the whole board that time. And I could have done, I could have taken Conquer or whatever and automatically got it. So I thought for a second he was going to give me the turn. And then he decided not to. And then I explained it to him. I was like, moving forward in this matchup, don't only have 4 models on your home objective and be almost on your backboard. Like, I could have taken it from you immediately. So he took the turn. He didn't move the snakes up, so the snakes didn't get to shoot anything. I think maybe they shot at a couple of Noblars. He had a little bit different list. So he had 5 Doomfire Warlocks. He had a unit of 20 Witch Elves, a unit of 10 Witch Elves, 15 Bow Snakes, the foot Medusa, a Hag Queen, I believe. Oh, no Hag Queen. So he had a foot Medusa and then both Marathis. And then a unit of Heartrenders. So turn one, he takes the turn. He doesn't really have anything in shooting range. He brings up Marathi, brings up the Shadow Queen, puts the Shadow Queen on the left side objective, sneaks up the 10-man unit of Witch Elves, and takes the right side objective and passes the turn. So he's got a monster on the objective on the left. So Hrothgorn and company drop down, take that objective back, and then I shoot the snakes off. I mean the Witch Elves off of the objective on the right, and creep up and take that objective, and kind of stay hunkered down because his snakes still aren't in range. I did move one cannon up, I think. Yeah, I moved one cannon up to get some shooting on it on his bow snakes, and then on his turn. No, I didn't. I didn't have anything in range of his shooting snakes. I didn't bother. Like I had no real reason to try to get damage on him to get him, hero face shooting if they weren't able to apply any damage to me. So there was no reward in taking that risk and losing a cannon to go get on average 3 or 4 wounds through on those snakes where they were. So I just stayed hunkered down, scored some points, and he won the roll off. But I did at that point. Oh, a deciding thing. I think on turn 1 he held his first cast with Marathi. He miscast and put 2 wounds on her, or 1 wound on her, something like that. So it basically sped the process of getting her off the board. So on my turn, I do the 3 wounds to her. So going into the top of turn 2, she's got 4 wounds on her. So he charges in with her. He was able to swing over. And hit one of my 4-man units of lead belchers, killed 2 of them, killed a couple Noblars, nothing great, but took 3 wounds on the way in, coming in, and then I rallied that unit of lead belchers that he had taken 2 out of and rolled 2 6s and filled it right back up. So Marathi basically died to got nothing, or the Shadow Queen. So I got those 2 back, and Took my turn, got my 3 wounds on Marathi. So Marathi's at 10 wounds. At this point, I don't care what he does on the turn roll-off. Like, if it goes my way, cool, I'll kill the Shadow Queen. If it doesn't go my way, and he tries to get the Shadow Queen, and I took every objective that turn except his home objective, and kind of hunkered down. And every one of my units, except the Butcher, has a shooting attack. So it's like, anything the Shadow Queen goes into, I can probably get 2 wounds on her. So he tried to charge. There was one thing on the board I forgot. The Frost Saber that was holding an objective. So he moves up. We figure out he's got an 8-inch charge. I rolled a 5 to redeploy, and now Marathi's stuck in the middle of the board. But the only thing that she can charge into has 8 lead belchers sitting behind it. So Shadow Queen doesn't move. Marathi goes in, takes one of her 2 wounds, charging a unit of Noblars on an objective, and obviously she got in, she killed them, took the objective back. And then on my turn, obviously Shadow Queen died, all of his Witch Elves are dead, his Doomfire Warlocks are dead, and he's got a unit of Heartrenders sitting basically on the back. So he's got the Heartrenders, the Medusa, and the 15 snakes, but I have no reason. And then I think I had won the double on that one. So in my turn of shooting Marathi off the table, I had pushed my whole army up to where I didn't get on his objective, and then I won the turn roll off, and it was all but over at that point because my entire army was about to charge 15 bow snakes. So then we went to talk it out. And even the Heartrenders just couldn't get where they needed to get to swarm any battle tactics. Iron Guts play well in the dock. Like, we have similar threat ranges. I just have a little bit more range, so they have to play a little more cagey. He did bring focusing on the teleport a lot, but he never got his teleport off. and the one time that he actually cast it to go off, he rolled a 11 for it to roll to go off, and I rolled an 11, and I was +1 sitting by the mall pot, so stopped it. So he was never in a position to win the game. Great guy. I think maybe because we were talking before the game, and he was like, "Yeah, you're familiar with the Doc matchup?" I'm like, "Yeah, I played the Army, and I just played it and like tabled it in a couple of rounds." So he was very cagey with his bow snakes, and if you can force bow snakes to almost touch the backboard and never move, then you can really win that matchup. The Shadow Queen, everyone's afraid of the Shadow Queen, but she can't beat you on her own if you don't feed her your army on your turn. So it was a good game. Great guy. He came all the way from San Diego to play, and ended up going 3-2. Had a good weekend. Like 3-2 is not a slouch in Texas. Like you got to earn them. And it was a great all around. All my games were great, but I got really lucky in matchups. I got some good matchups. Granted, they were all shooting matchups. It was all a lot of shooting armies that I just had more wounds than they did, so I could trade a little easier. It was basically, I think most of the armies that I played had 90 to 100 wounds, and I'm sitting on 165 wounds. And so it was a good weekend, and but that matchup was over. It was over pretty quick when the snakes couldn't apply any damage at all. It was just, and he asked me at the end. I was like, "You got to get those snakes out there. You got to keep them in your 5-up rerollable feel no pain bubble, and you got to get them out there and apply some damage. Because if they're just sitting on your home objective, you're not going to win that game. So hopefully." He had a great time. I think we had a great talk afterwards. I don't think he took it too hard. And again, I want to if you're watching this, Grant, please take a look. Shoot me a message on here, and I'll get you in the Houston Discord with us so we can talk more. But Underguts, man, Friday night I was showing my ass, telling everybody that they were about to catch the Underguts, man. I mean, and I got lucky enough to have a good weekend with them to call my shot. Like I was very close to 5-0ing with Underguts. Like it was like a turn roll off away from 5-0ing with Underguts. Granted, you never know if you would have gotten that 5-0 because you don't know how the rest of your pairings would have gone. But in that one game that I lost, it was a real close one. And Ben Richardson, fantastic game. It was like usually when I lose, I beat myself up over decision making. There was no bad decision making. It was just two guys who had two really, good armies and knew what they were doing, and the dice went his way in some of the situations where, and it's a dice game at the end. Like we say it all the time, the goal is to make it not be your decision making that loses you a game. It's a dice game. If you can push it all the way to where the dice matter, then you've kind of met that top tier where dice can affect your game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, so my game 5 was probably the most exciting and nerve-wracking game that I had with Trolls, just because with the game that I had lost with Suns, I wasn't like, I mean, we all kind of knew how that was going to go with the battle plan and stuff, but this one was like I was trying to go for 4-1. And then when I saw my matchup was someone who I think is pretty well known. His name's Paul. Let me see what his last name is.
Conti?
Yeah,
Paul.
Conti?
Hold on. I'll pull it up. But anyways, Paul, he was great player, and he was actually running Deepkin. And so I've fought Deepkin several times. It was one of my old practice matchups, and honestly, I was kind of dreading the idea. Paul Wright is his name.
Paul Wright.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he's like a Midwest player. But anyway, so like I was fighting his list, and I saw that he had 2 Leviathans with 3 units of Ishlan Guard with like the shield eels. And had a bunch of and then the Killian King and the Tidecaster, but he also had Gotrek, and he was running the sub faction where Gotrek gets all the buffs from the tides, which I knew right then and there that like this was going to be a really really tough match, and he thought so too. I mean,
It's Iron Rack.
Yep,
That's what it's called.
yep, yeah. And it was one of those things where he came up and he's like, I mean, basically was like, we both came to the understanding that this was a pretty rough matchup for me. Definitely starting with an uphill match, and so I was like, all right, well, I know I'm going 3-2 at least. Let's at least try to. And we both were like, you know what? It's the last game of the tournament. We both know we're not going to win. The tournament overall. So we were like, let's just try to have fun. We set it up, and I was explaining the rules because he hadn't really fought trolls. Common theme with my opponents, and he was really. And I think one of the things too that, if I do give myself any credit, it was that I think I was pretty good at picking up the cues that my opponents were asking. If I noticed they were specifically asking about a particular thing in general, like the Triple Maw Crusher guy was really focused on my Trog boss, and Paul was really, really focused on the Loon Shrine because he knew it has the Battle Shock aura, it has the Resurrect, it counts as a I can garrison units in there. It does a lot of things for Gits in general, and so he wanted. I mean, I could tell that he was really interested in it because he asked me 3 or 4 times about what's going on. So while we were setting it up, I just put it literally right at the edge of my territory, so that he, and so it was like the most. Especially with him having 2 monsters, I knew he was probably going to try to destroy it. So I put it right up there, and I put the Troll Hag right next to it in a way that I knew only one Leviathan could actually get into her. Because I'm not really worried about one Leviathan fighting her. I was really worried about both of them getting into her. Especially, and of course, trying to avoid Gotrek. I mean, Gotrek's like the one thing that I have no answer for whatsoever. And I could tell he wanted to just go in, and he had the battalion, the Alpha Beast Pack for his 2 Leviathans, and he rolled 6s on both. And so when he moved up, he's like, you know what? I think fate is telling me to take this first turn. And so he's like, and I was like, all right, man. And he went up and got in, like made some long. The 2 Leviathans and 2 of the 3 shield eels made the charge all the way across. Got into me. Turn 1. Everything is a 2-up save. His entire army was a 2-up save at that moment. And the shield eels were unrendable, and the Leviathan ignores -1 rend from his ancient mount trait or whatever, or it's the mount trait. So it was real, and I think they had a +1 save aura or they were in cover, but then he charged me. Really crazy stuff. Well, anyways, he killed Mollog. Actually came in clutch because he charged me with the 1 Leviathan, and I unleashed hell with the 6 Fellwaters, and so they vomited 6 damage onto him. Nothing serious, but still pretty decent damage for 1 command point. And he charged into some rock guts with Mollog, and I ended up getting the 5-up -1 to hit on him. So he was by himself, and he did so well with his charges that his Killian King was not in range to do the rerolls on either his shield deals or anything else. So he was just going off base, and he was pretty low on CP because he went first. So out of all that, he ended up only killing 6 rock guts, and that was it. He didn't really kill anything of significance, and the one that was already damaged was also in. I didn't do any damage to the one that destroyed the Loon Shrine, because he did get to destroy the Loon Shrine and killed 3 rock guts, and that was it. I didn't have anything in range to attack him. But then the other one that took the 6 damage from the vomit also was in range of the pile-in from those fell waters and Mollog. And Mollog did 4 mortal wounds, and then the the fell waters ended up doing 8 damage and killing it. So that was pretty wicked how I was able to actually kill Leviathan on his turn. And then, so I got the point for that and stuff. He captured all the objectives except for my 4.1, because this is like that the new battle for the pass. Well, then on my turn, I basically was like, I'm just gonna try to take one of the objectives from you, and we ended up. I killed his other Leviathan, and I killed all but 1 unit of the Ishelin Guard. And so I was thinking it was pretty good what I was doing, but I was really dreading the roll-off because his Gotrek is going to have run and charge on turn 2. And he ended up winning the roll-off, and it was kind of my worst fear because he captured all the objectives, and he ended up killing a ton of my trolls. All my fell waters and a rock gut unit got destroyed, and since my Loon Shrine was destroyed, I have no way of bringing that stuff back. Well, he was also trying to kill. His big mistake was that he tried to kill my general with his general, and so his Achillean King ran in charge across the map, got into my Trog boss, and then my Trog boss killed him. And then on top of that, my Trog boss piled in and slayed one of his shield deals, and then was able to cause the other shield deal to the coherency to lose from coherency. Yeah. So it was one of those things where, there were just some little things that I feel like he didn't quite know that trolls do, specifically on the rend and stuff. And so when he did charge that first turn, and he was trying to hopefully hold me down, he didn't expect that in one turn that he would lose most of that stuff, and I didn't either, to be honest. But then, so on my turn though, I was able to kill literally everything. I got the teleport off, and the troll hag went to his back objective and killed his Tidecaster. Didn't get to take the objective, but it set it up where the only thing he had left on the board at that point was Gotrek. And I knew he was basically just going to try to take my 4-point objective because he was so far ahead on points. That's really all he needed. What I ended up doing is I had Mollog, my Trog boss, and my Fungoid Cave Shaman dancing around in a triangle on my objective, so that no matter what he charged into, he could not get the objective. And every time he killed something, I would bring another rock gut unit or something in to replace it. And so that's literally all that happened for the rest of the game. Is he would go in, kill something, and then I would maneuver everything else so that if he charged me again on his turn, he still wouldn't be able to get it. Yeah, so he was getting the battle tactics, broken ranks, slay the warlord, stuff like that, but he wasn't actually getting any of the objective points. And so we went from what was on turn 2, I think he was at 20, and I was at 6 or something like that, to I think I ended up at 40 something. So it really ended up, or I'm sorry, I think I ended up at 36, and he only ended up getting another 4 points. So it was crazy how much it changed. And then afterwards, he was like, man, I did not expect to struggle so much against the trolls and stuff like that. He's like, I thought I had a 90% chance of winning this thing, and I was like, yeah, I thought you did too, because I did not expect to go 4-1 with trolls, and apparently no one else did either. So, yeah, Coach, if you're still there, hit me up. More secrets. Anyways, so, yeah, but I mean that was my experience. I had a blast. I got it was a good array of people. I built the list to fight certain armies, and it's always funny to watch when you're like, oh, I built this to fight Lumineth, I built this to fight Doc, things like that, and then I don't fight any of that. So that's usually how it ends up.
We did go 8-2 with Underguts and Trolls. Dude.
Yeah, the two shittiest destruction.
Underguts are like terrible.
Do it with Squigs.
Yeah. Oh, it's Squigs?
No. No.
No.
No Squigs. Not right now. Maybe look at a new book.
Yeah, I'll wait. So I'd rather do spiders before I do Squigs, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I love spiders, man. They are such cool models, but man, are they hot garbage. Like, I've looked at it. I can't find a way to make them.
I have a list, but
yeah, it's like
you're not going to win against.
you explode mortal wounds, if you
Iren.
spike mortal wounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's Gits in general. Gits is
3.0 got rid of their good battalions that make spiders.
Well, yeah, the Deep Strike one really, for the Skitter Strand, really kind of effed it up. But anyways, enough about bad armies. How'd you do, Justin?
All right. Well, my friends have heard me talk about it. I'm going to go positive. So my 5th game was against, I'm not going to try and pronounce his name because I will butcher it. It was a Stormcast player. He had 3 Annihilators, Relictor with Translocate, Knight Incanter.
He had the bows and the fulminators in his list.
He had 6 Raptors, no fulminators. Like I said, 3 units of 3 Annihilators, 2 units of Aether Wings, and a 5-man unit of Liberators, and another foot character. But it died before I could learn its name.
Before I could be bothered to know what it did, it was dead.
It shot once and did 2 wounds to the foot boss. That was its impact on the game. So there you go. I liked the list a lot. Shooting in the hero phase and in the shooting phase is always good. And it seemed everyone I played against who could do mortals on 6s with shooting just did every game, which was fun. Thankfully, I rolled well enough, obviously, with Amulet to win the game regardless. But anyway, so he was actually really smart. He had Hollowed Knights, I believe. It was the Stormkeep where if you're outnumbered, you get some kind of buff. So he charged his unit of Annihilators into 2 units of Pigs. Just to get that buff. I did 2 wounds in return. And his shooting put the Maw Crusher down to... It took 12 wounds from all the shooting, so it had 6 wounds left. So he did a lot to the Maw Crusher in that first battle round. Other than that, he didn't do much. I think he might have killed a pig. But the big thing was the damage to the Maw Crusher, and I knew I was going to have to deal with that somehow. So, my turn, I choose... you know what? I believe I chose take an objective with a monster that your opponent controls. I can't remember the name of it. Because he had 3 Annihilators, and I only had... It was the one where you need to take an objective with a monster. I can't remember the name. Anyway, I moved... My Maw Crusher had so few wounds that my hero ability was heal, and I healed 3 wounds from that. I used my prayer, thankfully got that off, healed 2 wounds from that. So I gained 5 wounds back, which was good. Moved the Maw Crusher around because he had placed those Annihilators to where I could not Mighty Destroyers with most of my army without having to charge them. So I retreated one of the units of pigs from combat in order to give space for the Maw Crusher to get in. And I used the Maw Crusher to kill the Annihilators. Other than that, everything else just kind of moved up. I went ahead and cast my teleport, trying to burn the Knight Incanter's 2-up deny early, because I just wanted him to get rid of it so I could use my teleport later. So he did that. And then we go into turn 2, and he rolls his dice, and it comes up a 2. I roll mine, I get a 5. Cool, I got my double. And I heal again because the Maw Crusher is now on 4 wounds taken, and it had gained a wound in attack because of there's a rule on their war scroll. I can't remember the name of it right now, but they gain wounds and attacks every time they kill a model in combat. Yeah. So now I was able to Mighty Destroyers because there was nothing within 12. So I had a unit of pigs, I had the Maw Crusher, and I had the Foot Boss all get Mighty Destroyered. I teleported the Rogue Idol up and Mighty Destroyer it. So I didn't do pigs, I just moved them. Yeah, it was the unit I retreated away 9 and then moved them 9, so they were fine.
Strength from victory?
Yeah, strength from victory,
yeah. And essentially, I just blew through his screen. I killed everything on the table except for the Knight Incanter, the Lord Relictor, and the 6 Raptors tucked in the corner. Unsurprising, I guess, with Iron Jaws that occurred because he had Aether Wings, Liberators, and a character in the way, so it wasn't exactly an impressive assortment. It's the only time so far I've been able to use the Maw Crusher Stomp ability, kill something, move in, stomp, kill it, move in again. So I guess that was cool. It's the only time I've ever done it. Probably the only time it's ever going to happen. So I scored max points on that because I have all the objectives, and I took the one where you need to... I think I did run 3 units because I knew he had 2 more units of Annihilators and Deep Strike, and he was going to come down and hurt my support characters pretty easily, kind of at his leisure. So I ran all 3 of them just to make sure I got those points down and could save other battle tactics for later. And the game basically devolved from there into run around and what can survive, right? Because he had 2 units, 3 Annihilators. He translocated the 6 Raptors onto my back objective, so his 4-point objective. Shot the Maw Crusher, did 6 wounds to it. It didn't kill it, because at this point it had gained 2 for its counter on wounds and attacks. But he got very close to killing it. He had it down to, I think, 5 wounds left. And he killed my support characters that round. Got Slay the Warlord for it because it's my shaman. But I knew that was going to happen, and I kind of left it as bait a little bit because it's like, okay, if he's charging my shaman, he's not killing my Maw Crusher or something else more valuable because he's already done his 1 teleport. So after that, I burst. We had an issue with Wobbly Model, which he hated. He hated Wobbly Model. He hated how I could place my Maw Crusher where I wanted because of Fly. So I had to work it out, and I used my Fast Gun to get out of range of his Lord Relictor so that I could then Mighty Destroyers to get a unit of pigs and the Maw Crusher very close to his Raptors, and then put the Rogue Idol outside 3 of the Lord Relictor alongside the Foot Boss, and then used my other pigs to claim his backfield objective and the other side objective. So I had all the to make sure I had all the objectives again. And I, of course, did not charge with my Maw Crusher into the Raptors. I know. I charged my pigs first because they ate the Overwatch, and I lost 2 pigs to it. I know. Blows the mind. Anyway, so I lost all but 1 pig.
Dude, those in-person things so huge.
I know.
50 times for 28 units in that hero phase.
So the Maw Crusher moved in, wiped them out, no problem. And from then on, it became a game of runaway. There was a turn where he went for Bring It Down on the Maw Crusher, and it had 5 wounds left. And I redeployed 6 inches up over a terrain piece with Fly, so that he then had a 10-inch charge, because I killed the character that let him bring in the units within 7, so he was at 9. So he put it at 9, and in his turn, he moved it up. So then I redeployed away, so it was a 10-inch charge. And by this point, we had the tournament judge watching the table because of other reasons. And from there, the game was over. He had 2 units of 3 Annihilators and a foot Knight Incanter. And I was just bouncing around him. I had more movement with the Maw Crusher, and I just could avoid him. And I just scored max points all 3 rounds at the last rounds. So I finished the game with 51 points because I kept my grand strategy with 1 pig left alive. And he got 30-something, a low 30. So I got that one off, and that gave me the 5-0 win, which I was not expecting, but cool. I am actually happy about it. I'm not a normal human being, so I don't expect
easy.
It hasn't all the way sunk in yet. It was a great event overall. Like the TOs were fantastic. Bringing James O'Brien in was outstanding. I mean, the guy's ran Nova Open for years. He's been the head TO there. Bringing him in was outstanding. There was a level of professionalism there for the TOs that it's not that they were lacking it. It just added more to how good that team already was. The guys from Austin that helped out with Jeffrey Descaitis and the guys that we know that are part of our Texas Masters crew, like, holy cow, great event. Could not have had a better weekend. And, 4 out of the top 6 being Harambe's heroes ain't bad.
What is this? Oh, we're doing trophies? Oh, his is more impressive. I got one. Oh.
If your camera worked, Gavin.
Not as impressive. Terrible.
No, I'm happy for everybody. You guys have been great. Getting that, both of you going 5-0. It was a great weekend. I could not have asked for more out of an event. And then, because Gavin, we've been traveling so much all over the country. We knew like Noah and the guys from the old world scene coach, and we just knew so many people there. It was just a fun weekend to get to hang out with people that we are friends with for a weekend every couple of months.
Yeah, like you kind of said it there, where the community's so small, right? Like when you travel around and you really see like the community is what makes everything happen at these events. It's not this greater power or this unknown thing there's no corporation, there's no big thing behind the scenes. It's the community making these tournaments happen, and it's great just to see the amount of travel that happens and the amount of interaction that happens, like the networking that happens, like just being able to experience that over the past 6 months or so is one of the best things that I can remember experiencing in a long time. Like it's something that I've been it almost feels like you were missing something that you didn't even know about, right? Like once you discover it, you're like, where was this? My whole life. Like this is. Mm-hmm. It's just such a great community hobby to be a part of. So what I want to do is generally speak about something that I saw that happened at the tournament that was pretty unfortunate. Without being too specific, if your response to somebody rolling dice well in a game to accuse them of using weighted dice, and then call a judge over and demand.
Gavin, you're breaking up a little bit.
You're breaking up, buddy. So
might have lost him. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I mean, I know where he's going with it. If someone is rolling good and it makes you mad, and you demand that they change their dice, or you're going to bring a TO over, you're playing this game for the wrong reason. Like, I don't know where Gavin was going, but I'll let him finish. Looks like he may be. Nope, he's out. So if he comes back in, I'll stop. But I'm with you on that. Like, you are overvaluing the outcome and undervaluing the opinion.
What a time to break up, right?
Yeah.
Can y'all hear me now?
Yeah, you've been
down. So, like I was kind of alluding to, so if your opponent is rolling dice well, and your response is to accuse them of weighted dice and call a T over and demand that your opponent change your dice, I think I kind of heard Brian kind of add on to the point of you're in the hobby for the wrong reason. I would also like to add that it's pathetic and childish, and that behavior has no place in our community or our tournaments. So just generally speaking. I don't want to name names. I don't want to create drama in that regard. I would like to highlight the behavior because it doesn't have a place in our community, and that's and I think that most people who play this game for the right reasons feel that same way. And if we're not going to talk about the behavior and pretend it doesn't exist, it's just going to let the behavior fester. And worse yet, it's going to chase people away from this hobby that would be great assets. And
Right.
you know, this hobby is too good of a community building experience for that behavior to exist in it. So that's just something I wanted to touch on. Justin was very gracious and very nice, and you know, in his recap of that game. But that's what I have to say about that game. So not to be too negative, because the event was awesome. Like the TOs did a great job.
The event.
Most of the people there were awesome people to be around. Everything was great, and it was one of the best experiences I can remember having in recent memory. Right. So.
Yeah.
Recaps are an Age of Sigmar tournament. You know, that's, you know, kind of a weird way to end it, right? But
well, real quick,
we got this.
Did you want to talk about what we can talk about?
Oh yeah, dude, this invitational thing that we've all been invited to.
We are better, is what it means.
It appears that way. Let's see. We'll get. We'll have to play all these guys. We'll get to see who's better, right? That's why we play the games. Yeah. So in Grapevine, in what, week and a half?
Yeah.
Yeah, week and a half. We all get to go there
next Friday.
Just sign all kinds of stuff, dude. We can't talk about it too much.
NDAs, legal agreements to not say anything.
What we can talk about is what they said at Austin.
During the announcements, yeah.
Yeah. So it's an 8-man invitational tournament they've had broken up into overalls and best general. So it's 2 4-man brackets, I think, and we're going to play games based on those brackets, with lots of cool little stuff added on. I think they're going to stream the games, so it's going to be a really awesome experience, and I'm honored to be invited to it. And I'm glad that our club has got 3 of the 8 spots.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
I mean, nothing could be. I mean, the 3 people going. I mean, that are here. We didn't know we were actually going to be participating in it until the end of Austin, pretty much, right? Like, we had no idea that we were actually going to be. And I mean, for us to, I mean, I think mine was the one that everyone, like, they had kind of given us a heads up on, but there was no predicting that it would be us
close.
That they chose.
It was almost us 4.
Yeah,
it was so close. Like,
I mean, it's quite the honor to do it. And, you know, it never would have guessed that us would have be going to that event and competing against people who really are like the best of the best.
Oh yeah, you guys are. I am so pumped for you guys for that, and our club is all about the joke and the meme, and we really don't take ourselves too seriously, but we are happy for each other. That's I can't wait to see how you guys do. You know, I mean, can't wait.
We just gotta go with the right mindset, right? Go, have fun, enjoy the experience. I've never been to the Citadel, so that'll be cool. It's a new thing. We'll try it. We'll undoubtedly have a good weekend. I don't think anyone who's probably going to play there is going to be like annoying to play with. And whether we win or lose, we're all just going to get together and play AOS in hopefully, with some interesting situations. Possibly, what they hinted at was maybe different missions. We'll see what happens. Yeah. So I think it'll be a cool weekend.
Yeah, they definitely. It's kind of. I mean, we talked about how it's new for us too. I mean, it's also new for them. This is the first time they're really ever kind of doing this with people who aren't part of the game testers and stuff like that. So they were talking about, at least for 40K, some pretty new stuff that they were planning on doing, and then it was kind of alluded to with us. So we're really excited to see what they have to offer us. And in worst case, I'm sure it's just going to be a good time. They're going to give us a barbecue. So I'm sure that we can talk about that. So, they'll meet the team and hang out, and
I get to buy the 2 Forge World models I need for my Lord of the Rings without paying shipping. Like, that's all. I mean,
Yeah,
hey.
I mean, it's going to be great to. I mean, not only go there and represent Texas, but also the Harambe's in general, and show them what we're really made of. I know we're like Justin and I are in the best general category, going up against Cody,
Bill Souza.
Cody Schultz, and Bill Souza. So, I mean, it's going to be
Good players, very good players.
Yeah,
At least from what I've been told.
Gavin takes on all the best overall, so it's going to be kind of crazy over what happens. And I mean, who would have guessed that we got here anyway? So maybe I win the trolls. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it's really weird if you think about it. Just a dumb little club out of freaking Katy, Texas, and we've acquired these people, and the amount of I guess I say success that we've had when you think about what our club is and what it started as, which only we really know, is really.
We made a big meme out of it. And
I mean, and we're the number one rank on BCP.
Yeah, it's really cool, and it's probably one of the better things in my life outside of being engaged that I'm in this group and friends with you guys. It's truly fun to go to events with y'all and to shoot the shit, whether you win, lose, draw, whatever.
Yeah, and I think that's the secret. If anyone ever wants to know how we get good with these armies and this place out, it's because of the community that we have. We're constantly playing each other and getting our armies fine-tuned. So when we get there, a lot of these tournaments, I ask people, I'm like, hey, when was the last time you played Age of Sigmar? And they're like, oh, I did a local, a few months ago, or, oh, it's been, a year, or I haven't played since COVID started, and this is the first time. We've been playing,
all the time.
Twice a month? At
all
least.
The time. We play all the time.
And that's just the locals that we do. We always have at least 10, 12, 15 people there. We're always doing these tournaments. We have our own Texas circuit. I mean, it's night and day with how Orlando was compared to Austin. I mean, there's a reason why we had 117 players at this tournament, and a lot of it has to do with the community. I mean, I know Coach was talking about it in the chat where it should be the Harambe's presenting the U.S. Open, but we actually were working with them because it was kind of like a joint thing, because part of our Texas Master Circuit was this Austin tournament. So, and they gave out the hammer and stuff at this tournament, and one of the judges was part of the Texas Master Circuit. So we were working a lot closer with them than one might think, and it'd almost be foolish for them going forward for them not to make next year's either Houston, Dallas, or San Antonio. So, especially Houston.
Just gonna casually hold my shaft,
Yeah, we're running long, but I appreciate everybody who's hung out. And Gavin's having some internet troubles, so
it wouldn't be a Harambe's podcast without Gavin having internet issues. There we go.
Terrible.
You gonna sign us off?
I think y'all been doing a pretty good job. I heard y'all kind of saying stuff as I'm struggling with my internet here, but
I'll sign your battle zone, by the way, Coach. Unless you were talking.
Yeah, now we've been on the map. We've got legit podcasters watching us with AOS Coach and Caleb.
Actual professionals.
Legit dudes watching us.
Just some decent players from Texas. That's all we are. So
yeah.
We'll see. Thanks for watching, guys.
Yeah, thank you guys.
And everybody that celebrates it, have an awesome Thanksgiving. So, see ya.